Hey everybody! Hey, yes, it is my first live stream. Welcome to the channel. I have never done this before, so it's going to be a kind of a learning experience for you and me. I hope everybody has fun. That's a bingo. Hey Fungazi. Hey Vadismore. Chris, yes, I am indeed live. Hello there. Got that goblin green going. Only the best goblin green. Only the best goblin green. I actually don't, funny enough, I don't have any miniatures based in goblin green at all. But that was mostly because I just didn't paint my miniatures for the longest time. So, you can't really blame me for not indulging in that nostalgia a little. And now that I do base my miniatures, it's basically just Astro Granite and paint the rim of the base. That's it. So I skipped over the goblin green face. I skipped over it. Just all blank bases, baby. Check. I wonder if GW tried to sue Mantic for also having space dwarves many years ago. Aha, yes. We will be talking about squats. It seems like my take on squats was pretty controversial, which is a bit of a surprise to me. Honestly, I thought that a lot of what I said was should have been non-controversial, really, at this stage. But sure, I mean, we'll get into it. Hi, Monkey Boy. Yes, Lady Discord. Not lady. With this haircut, I mean... Hardly a lady. I'm clearly a prince. Come on, look at this. This is a princely look. Come on, this haircut is just perfect for it. The center parting and everything. I should say that I didn't ask to look like a prince when I went into the hairdressers. I didn't say, make me look like a Bretonian lord. I didn't want that, in fact. And I explicitly said, please no center parting, because I was worried about my proclivity to looking like a Bretonian lord. But... They just didn't listen. They didn't pay attention. Luckily, all the comments have been very positive about the hair. Hello. Yes, hi, Mike. Shield Wall of Dragons. Hey there. Hey, Paul McCoy. Hey, my cat. Wow, there's a lot of people in chat today. Wow. Shield Wall of Dragons have to ask, where's your accent from? I am sure there is going to be, I'm sure there's lots of people out there. I always get this comment. I'm from Northern Ireland. So it's this kind of weird, kind of Scottish-Irish mix, which probably throws a lot of people off. But on top of that, I mean, I am just sort of after the MTV generation. So I watched a lot of sitcoms growing up. One of them was Frasier, of course. And that means that I've got a bit of an American lilt to my accent. I find that I also have to do that. I kind of have to put on a bit of an American lilt. Otherwise, I'm just incomprehensible. If I just go full on Northern Ireland discourse, it's not pretty. You cannot understand it. It's like a dialect. So I come from a very working class kind of poor background. And so I have a very thick Northern Irish accent when I want it or when I'm really tired. So I have to project my voice a little bit, which means that I scream a lot. Oh, Andrew Mentomatos with the $10 donation. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. That's really lovely. Thank you. Yo, Discourse, love your content, and maybe you were a little harsh on your last video, but your view is understandable. Well, have a great day or night. It is 4 p.m. for me, so that is daytime. Yes, I was a little bit harsh, perhaps, on squats, but thank you so much for the donation. It really means a lot. Hey, I'm going to have to do these more often, huh? Yes, squats. So, I mean, I guess, so a lot of my criticisms for squats were couched in what we know so far. And most of what we know, I've gotten a lot of criticism for critiquing the squats by basically a lot of the retorts have been, we've only seen one miniature so far. We haven't really heard a lot about the lore. There's been like a tiny bit of the lore, but I don't really care that much about the lore. As far as I'm concerned, Games Workshop can do whatever they want with the lore, so long as it's interesting, so long as it's good. I don't mind. So we've only seen one miniature. How can you criticize that? Well, from my perspective, the one miniature I've seen hasn't really filled me with excitement. And I can only speak for myself there. This is obviously a subjective thing, at least in terms of aesthetics. So aesthetically speaking, I'm not super excited by what we've seen so far. It's a totally subjective thing. And that's really it. In the video itself, in my most recent video, I talk about how they look a little bit like Terran Marines from the game StarCraft. And they do. They look a lot like that, but without any of the edge. And it's the edge that I love about the Terran Marines. So I kind of miss that. But secondly, as well, we've already seen squats in Warhammer 40k. We've seen them in Necromunda. There's a couple of squat models in Necromunda, and I really like how they look in that. So I'm disappointed to see them look a lot different from that. Now, that said, this isn't like one of the biggest deals in the world. There are factions in the game already that I don't like the aesthetic of. That's fine. It's fine for there to be models that I don't like the aesthetic of. And there might be models coming down the line that I will like the aesthetic of, that they have. Maybe I'll enjoy the look of their tanks. Maybe I will like the robots that I really want them to have. I really hope they have like 50s style robots. That would be very cool. So maybe I'll enjoy some aspects of that. But from what I've seen, and it looks to be like their core infantry, which is very often sort of the linchpin of the aesthetic design of a faction, is usually located in the core infantry. So far, I'm not excited by what I've seen there. It just looks very plain and very generic, which when I think of Warhammer 40k, there's a lot of words that come to mind, but generic isn't one of them. It's a very specific setting. So I'm curious to see how they do it in terms of the aesthetics, certainly. We getting into the squat discourse now. Oh, and Ingy, thank you so much for the donation there as well. That's really lovely of you. Thank you. That is very kind. It's really nice. Wow, that's incredible. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That's great. So recently, I mean, the only reason why I'm able to do like a live stream right now is that I recently took on an editor, because basically I'm doing a video like every 4 days, and it's genuinely taking me about 4 to 5 days to actually complete a video, between writing the script, recording the video itself, editing the video, which takes like 3 days in and of itself, and then doing like the thumbnails and stuff like that, and then trying to answer comments in the middle of that. It's really tough. And I was at the stage where I was starting to burn out a little bit. I was getting a little bit like, whoa, I can't keep up with this. So I had to end up just hire on an editor, which means that I'm actually making a bit of a loss on every video, but it's okay. I enjoy making the content right now. So thank you so much. That's really helps support the channel. It's really big. Thanks so much. Maka says it's a pretty polarizing release. I think there's a 50-50 split among haters and enjoyers. Yeah, I think so. Look, any change in the game is always going to have some controversy around it, right? Because you're always going to have people who enjoy the game as it is, and so if you make any changes at all, people are always going to be a little bit upset about that. I don't mind it too much. My big issue, I suppose, with squats as well, is that they're another faction, and there are a lot of factions in Warhammer 40k. There are too many factions, in my opinion. Anyone who's watched my 3 hot takes videos on Warhammer knows that I would consolidate them if I had my way. I would consolidate them a little bit more. So adding in another additional faction is just, it's pretty tough for me. I think it all comes down to the design philosophy of what a faction does. For me, a faction in a game should be a place for specific types of gameplay, for a specific gameplay style, and for a certain theme and tone. So whenever I think about what a faction does, I think of it in that terms, which means that if you have lots and lots of factions, they're very likely to overlap with one another in terms of the gameplay that they have, and in terms of the theme and tone that they play with. There's only so much you can do there. My opinion is I prefer factions that are very distinct from one another and offer a completely unique experience when you play as them. And in fairness to 40k, they do that a lot because everyone has their own book and they have their own bespoke mechanics. That's kind of good in my opinion because it allows factions to feel very unique. When you are playing a certain faction, you know you are playing them. So it's kind of like playing a game like StarCraft where there are 3 factions and each one is very distinct from one another. In contrast, though, there's the type of style where there will be lots of factions, tons and tons of them, but they will only have minor tweaks between one another. So maybe they'll be sharing like a similar core unit. So I think of something like Age of Empires. Sorry, all of my references are like 2000s and 90s RTS games. I'm sorry, this was my childhood. So Age of Empires, I think of that, where you've got very similar civilizations, but say the Irish can build a certain type of unit, and the English can build the longbowmen. And so that sort of brings out minor distinctions in gameplay. I prefer very distinct factions. Warhammer is in this very unique position where it has 19 factions and they're all very different, sort of. I think that there's been, as time has gone on and as factions have become more bloated because more additions have been added to them. I mean, we only need to look at Space Marines right now. Like, what are Space Marines good at and what are they bad at? Who knows? There's too many units to be able to tell. I'm worried that the game is just becoming a bit messy. There's a little bit too much overlap between factions, so I don't get like automatically hyped up when I see there's another faction coming out. Although I will admit that I'm a big fan of Genestealer cultists. Like I'm hypocritical on this. I think the Genestealer cultists are one of the most interesting factions that Games Workshop have designed because they occupy a very specific and unique niche, which is really interesting. I couldn't say the same for a lot of other factions in the game. So sorry. Hey Kay, no, it's not that controversial. Mike said before the red, it was Mithril Silver. Dolpheus, I love your haircut though. Thank you so much. Thank you. People have been really kind about the haircut. Paul Greer, you need a mohawk. Yeah, I do. I've actually been painting, there's this game, Mythic Americas, which is about pre-Columbian societies who are going to battle with one another, and the mythic monsters from their legends are real, so they have access to supernatural units, and there's magic and things like that. And I've been collecting some tribal nations, which is the Iroquois Federation, so you have all sorts of different tribes, and you've got the Mohawk as a member of this faction, and I've been painting a lot of them recently, and they've got the sort of, it's a little bit ahistorical in that they have metal tomahawks rather than stone tomahawks, which was what they would have had pre-Columbian times. But, you know, it's cooler to have metal tomahawks, so they've got that, and man, they are a lot of fun to paint. I'm really enjoying that. Admittedly, partly it's because they've got just a lot of skin, which, you know, obviously I'm a fan of, but secondly, because that's really easy to paint with Guilliman flesh tone. You just whop that on there and away you go. I love that. So, yeah, Mohawks are cool. Mohawks are cool, and that was kind of what was going through my mind whenever I was thinking about the squats. I was like, damn, I wish they had a little bit more theme to them, you know? Bretonnian Lords are cool, says Bremer. Yes, they are. Bretonnian Lords are cool, although, you know, they're a little bit cruel as well. Luddite says, I love your hair. Well, you're a Luddite. Of course you'd love the hair if I'm looking like a medieval lord. Shield Wolf Dragon says, your hair looks great. Thank you. Satisfaction is, it was just hard enough. Games Workshop, the Linda S. Yes. So Games Workshop, the Linda S came from the suggestion of a patron, Meg. She said it would be very funny if every single one of my videos ended with Games Workshop, the Linda S. And I had to agree with her. I thought it was kind of funny. So I just started doing it. And now it seems to have kind of, I just feel compelled, beholden to my promise to continue to do it. Jacob says, haircut for Z lady. That was who it was for. Monkey Boy says, you're a princess to me. Well, thank you very much. I've lost my place in the chat. Ooh, this is screaming all over the place. Adam Murray says they took a lot of something from StarCraft. Yes, they did. It's very similar. Dana Heil says, sup everyone, morning discourse. Hey Dana, hey there, welcome to the chat. Awesome. Bastards of North says, come on, how can you not be excited by Squat's return? I know that they've been a fan favorite. I know that people have been really looking forward to Squats. That's cool, like that's fine. Like I said in the video, I mean, it's funny because I'm getting a lot of clapback over this latest video, but I thought I was being very sort of nice in the video itself. I don't want to yuck in anyone's yum. If you're excited about Squats, then by all means be excited about them. I just can't help turn that side of my brain off, where I can see what they've done with other factions and how they've built those other factions in the past, how they're starting to monetize their products a lot more, and how they're trying to optimize their products monetization. I can't turn that side off for me. So whenever I see Squats and I'm like, oh no, what are they going to try this time? I'm sorry. It's just how my brain works. I cannot take it in good faith now. There's been too much messing around, to be honest. Satisfaction says, Jack Daniels, they have orcs and elves. Yep. Idle Bread says gaming. This guy shows up in the comments section of every single one of my videos and says the word gaming. I don't know what's going on there, but I heart it and love it every time. Shield of Dragon says, Dana Heil, hello. Oh no, all the Dana fans are coming out. Rebel Lars says hello. Dak Daniels says, yeah, but remember 40k is full of guns and explosions. Never forget that. Oh, and I've just had Monkey Boy has given a donation of £9. Thank you so much, Monkey Boy. That is so kind of you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That's really awesome. That's so cool. Thank you. William Nichols says she hates Space Marines. And she cannot like a new army if she wants. Yes, leave discourse alone. Yes, I'm not a huge fan of Space Marines. Now, I think that my hatred of Space Marines is a little bit overblown because, you know, in my opinion, I destroy most of them. So I can see how people get the impression that I'm not a big fan. But so let me put it this way. I don't mind Space Marines, and specifically, I don't mind Space Marines the way they used to be depicted, which was very unique. They were very sort of crusadery kind of knights. I mean, my favorite chapter from Space Marines are the Black Templars. The Black Templars to me have a lot of personality. My problem with a lot of the Space Marine chapters is their personality is variations on a theme. Here's the guys who are good at drawing up maps. Here's the guys who sort of have a little bit of wolf imagery. And I know that in the books and in the lore and in the codices that there's a little bit more to them. It's just I have a little bit of a prejudice against Space Marines. The first army I was going to collect in Warhammer 40k was going to be Space Marines. Based on my experience with them in Dawn of War, I thought they were very cool. When I was like 12 or 13 or whatever age I was whenever I first played Dawn of War, and they had those really cool voices, and they were like Space Marines, and they were ready to kill. Man, I had a lot of fun with those guys. So I was totally up for playing Space Marines. But then I went in and I first heard about the Imperial Guard, and I was like, wow, hold on. So these guys are just normal dudes like going up against all these orcs and stuff and this chaos stuff? Count me in. And there was a path leading me down the road of Space Marines, and I took the Imperial Guard path. And then, ironically, I ended up not collecting the Imperial Guard and started collecting Sisters of Battle instead, because I was like, wait, these are normal people, but wearing power armor, and they're chicks. I'm in. So yeah, but then they were all made of metal, so I went back to Imperial Guard. Oh, metal. I'm not a fan. I'm sorry. I know there are people out there who love the weight, but I can't handle it. I can't handle it. Inquisitor Vex says, Vile Xenos. Nice bikes, though. Okay, can we talk for a second about how the Gene Stealer cults have the coolest bikes in the game? And if the squats do get bikes again, I hope that they take a little bit of lesson from the Gene Stealer cults bikes and not the Space Marine bikes of yesteryear. 100%. Adam Murray says they look like something from StarCraft. Yep, definitely. Slimmer Dimmer, I love that name. Have you ever played Collected Middle-earth SBG? Yes, I have, actually. I've got an Uruk-hai force because I am an Isengard fan. I do believe that there should have been an industrial revolution in Middle-earth, and I will fight Lackey about this in our Lord of the Rings book club. And I believe that Saruman was in the right. He could have used the ring against Sauron. We should have trusted him. He's the White Wizard. So I think that he's earned our trust. He just wanted to compromise a little with existential evil. So yeah, I collect Uruk-hai. I'm a big fan. It's time for the Age of Man to end. And I'm a big fan especially of battle companies. I really like that system. In fact, I think that, here's a little bit of a spoiler for a future video. I think that the Middle-earth strategy battle game is the best game that Games Workshop have created or ever created, because they actually innovated a little bit in this game. They actually changed up their normal systems. The fight style is completely different from the standard sort of mishmash that Games Workshop like to rely on. So I thought this was super exciting. And whenever I first played it, I had a blast. And yeah, I really enjoy it. I just don't get the time to play it as much as I would like. There are so many games. And I don't have the time. I don't have the time. Oh, and another donation from, then here we go. We've got Andrew Mento Matos. What do you think of the old vid of a guy burning his Dark Elf army when Age of Sigmar came out? I know it is an old video, but it feels so painful to see. Well, I mean, firstly, thanks so much for the donation. That means a lot. That's really lovely. That's a tough one. So, I mean, personally, I guess my impression is I would never burn one of my armies. I don't think I could handle that. That would freak me out. And I don't think I would burn an army just because a game system is changing. I mean, you can always go back. And I get the frustration of fantasy being destroyed, of it being lost to Age of Sigmar. I really do. Because Warhammer Fantasy is my favorite system, or my favorite setting, rather, for any war game. I love it. I really enjoy it. I think it's a brilliant fantasy setting. I think it's lovely. And to see it go away to Age of Sigmar, and I'm not a big fan of Age of Sigmar. I just don't really enjoy it that much. If you want my opinions, watch the video by Zorpazorp on why he doesn't like Age of Sigmar, and that's basically it. Now, I have an Age of Sigmar army because it's played, and I don't mind the gameplay as much. And I love Beasts of Chaos. What can I say? But I love Warhammer Fantasy, so it was really sad to see that gone. I'm not sure how much of a betrayal I view it as. I understood the reason for why it was being removed. And to be honest, I could kind of see it writing on the wall for a while. I was still very sad about the loss of them. Although I was under no... I knew that I could probably continue to play the game. By that stage, most of the people I played with were out of the game entirely. I told a pretty fun story, I think, in one of the Q&As, about one of the players I used to play against who had a big Bretonian army, and I defeated him with my gunline army without him getting to play the game at all. And he never played again. And he was like meant to be my main opponent. So I continued to collect Empire, and I collected a little bit more Warriors of Chaos at the time, but I just didn't get many games in. So it was... long story short, I would never burn one of my armies. I would not be able to handle that. I couldn't do that at all. Bianio says, bonjour, everyone. Yep, bonjour. Inquisitor Vex says, that sounds cool, to be honest. Great Book of Grudges. Hey there, Great Book of Grudges. That is a name that is hard to say really, really fast. Love your content. That's great. Great lore content. And I really enjoyed your tier list the other day. I might, at some stage, go over it and explain to everyone why you're wrong, obviously. 40k needs an end times AOS 2. Bring back the only true setting. Hey, to be honest, I mean, 40k is in a really weird, tricky spot, because in my head, I still think of 40k as a very stagnant setting, but I know now that that's not the case. They're obviously, Games Workshop are pushing it along in terms of the lore. That's kind of fine. I just don't always agree with the decisions they make, which is going to be the case, obviously. I mean, I did a whole thing on the Primaris Marines and the Necrons and stuff. There's going to be always changes I don't like, because, you know, so just what I enjoy and what other people enjoy are just going to be different things. Matt says, if you go Mohawk, you need to go Mad Max in at least one skit. Yes, if I ever get a Mohawk, you have my promise that I will do a Mad Max skit. Although I reserve the right to do a Mad Max skit even if I don't do a Mohawk. John Thompson with the £10 donation. Thank you so much, John. That is very lovely of you. Thank you. Well, everyone's been really so kind today. That's really nice. Very generous. L1011 with TriStar, another donation of $10. Thank you so much. That is so nice of you. I fear the squats will be used to reform lore, such as you now will have the player identify with them as I fucking love science faction that views the Imperials with contempt rather than necessity. I can see that. I mean, I definitely get a bit of a NASA vibe from the squats. They've got a very sort of modern, clean aesthetic to them. To be honest, I find that a little bit bland, personally. There's a game called Deep Rock Galactic, which is just about dwarves mining, and I cannot help but see the influence of that game on this design. I'm sorry, I can't help but see it. It looks so similar. And yeah, I totally get you. I mean, some people have been really crying out for a very human good guy faction in Warhammer 40k. So there's people out there who want to play the good guys. And right now, in terms of 40k, it's often depicted as the Space Marines, which is, it's pretty problematic, not gonna lie. Pretty problematic for the Space Marines to be depicted as good guys. So I get them wanting to have a sort of good faction. Space Dwarves, can that be it? Maybe so. The I fucking love faction, science faction, should probably be the AdMech. Come on. Surely it should be the AdMech, right? I mean, I get that they don't do normal science. I get that, but they are the sort of technologically developed faction. They're just very, you know, body horror, and they have lots of Geiger influences, which is really cool and very specific to 40k. There's lots of games and settings out there with a I love science faction. Infinity, for one, I think has a couple. So I get the sort of hesitancy on it, 100%. Ludite donates £10. Thank you so much, Ludite. A donation fit for Prince. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you to say, or to send on. That's really lovely. Dean Patterson says, 40k is so bloated that wide swathes of older stuff is useless to field. That is definitely the case. There's been times, correct me if I'm wrong, chat, but there has been times where the game has lost units, where units have been pruned from codices. I'm trying to remember back to my Imperial Guard army. I think I remember losing a unit in between editions and being like, oh damn, I guess I can't function anymore. 100%. Dak Daniels, that name is so hard for me to say. Dak Daniels, I'm really used to saying the other way around. I do agree that 40k is fully capable of races that could be very more unique and crazy. I love unique factions and unique races. I absolutely adore it. Whenever I play it, so this is why, okay, no one's gonna have a clue what I'm talking about, okay? But I play a lot of the Batman miniature game, and every single faction in that game is totally unique. They all have their own deck of objectives that they're all trying to achieve. If you're playing as the Joker, you want your guys to get kicked about. You want your guys to be killed by the opponent. That's in your goal. You want to throw poison fish around. Whereas if you're playing as Batman, you need to bring in the villain, you need to try and arrest people with cops and investigate crimes. So you're playing two very distinct games. I love that. I think that's so much fun, and more games should do it. And I feel like Games Workshop have tried it a little bit with secondary objectives and with the stratagems. I just feel like it's been ham-fisted, and they've tried to put too much in, and it's just gotten really messy. Maka says, I'd say this is going to be a good shooting, good close combat army with powerful vehicles, but the main drawbacks will be it's slow, and two, it won't be able to soup up. I totally agree. I think that that's definitely going to be the issue with squats. Look, I said it in the video, I think the squats are going to make for a really good beginner army, the same way that Space Marines used to make for a very, very good beginner army. They're going to be tough, they're going to have nice armor, they're going to be really good at they're going to be okay at most things, a jack of all trades, master of none. I think that's a fine faction. I think that's a fine faction to exist in the game. Totally 100%. That is a good niche. My problem is that, well, I mean, shouldn't that just be Space Marines? I mean, shouldn't that be the Space Marine faction? Maybe if they didn't have like 100 plus units inside their codex, most of which are unique lieutenants, then maybe it would be a lot easier to get the new players into playing Space Marines. But right now, if you're a new player, you open up that codex, you're like, whoa, what's going on? Or at least I would be anyway, because I know whenever I have too much choice, my brain just starts to shut down. Definitely. Rebel Lar says, hello, Great Book of Grudges. NML says, I got told I was crazy and laughed at for caring about the imbalance of the game. Basically told that the game is imbalanced and always will be, so shut up and play the game. Look, there's a lot of schools of thoughts in this. So my problem with 40k is that it tries to be all things to all men. In a sense, I mean, the game isn't balanced. And the game, to my mind, has never really quite been balanced. There's always been issues with the balance. Now, that said, I don't think I've ever seen it quite as bad as it is right now. And the closest we ever got to the game being balanced was in 7th edition, whenever the indexes came out and all the armies were updated at the same time. This was the closest we ever came to the game being balanced. So it's clear to me that it's not impossible for the game to at least have some semblance of balance. So therefore, why isn't the game balanced right now? Well, the game isn't balanced right now because of the business model of the game. This is directly related. The fact that the game is being pushed by Games Workshop as a profitable enterprise and they're trying to maximize the profit is directly related with the fact that the game is not balanced. You cannot separate these two. They are completely entwined with one another. If the Games Workshop really wanted to balance the game, if that was their core priority, if they were like, we want to have a competitive game, that's all we care about. I want the game to be balanced. If that was all they cared about, then what they would do is they would update all of the factions. They'd start working on all the factions for a 10th edition version of the rulebook. They would do 10th edition and they would release an index for every single faction all at once so that everybody was on the same playing field, and they'd playtest the hell out of it beforehand. If they really wanted the game to be balanced, they could do that. They have the money to do that. And to be honest, I don't think it would be unprofitable. But it wouldn't make as much profit as drip feeding out every single faction, trying to build up the hype with every new release, trying to get people who currently play one army to play the new faction because it's the new thing. And then they make tons more money that way. So if you're Games Workshop, your goal is to make a profit. That's what you do. To me, that's not great. I don't like that. I mean, I'm not in favor of that because my goal, I don't care how profitable Games Workshop are. My core objective is not for Games Workshop to make the most amount of money they possibly could. My objective is to have a fun game, is to have a hobby that reflects the things that I enjoy within it. So I don't really care if Games Workshop make hundreds of billions of dollars. I want them certainly to continue to exist and to continue to create games, but I don't want them to do that at the expense of making bad games. That seems so strange to me. Why? All I care about are the games and the miniatures. The money is ancillary to me, but the Games Workshop, the miniatures and the models and the games are ancillary to the money. So it's just about we've got different objectives, and of course I have to put across my perspective, and if other people agree with that, that's awesome, and that means that the voice gets amplified, and maybe there will be change. Let's see here. So we got Monkey Boy, the rules bloat in 40k is a total killer for me, jumped onto one-page rules. Yeah. So one-page rules is pretty good for that. I think it's really disruptive on the market because they definitely have been able to present a viable alternative to Warhammer 40k. One of the main complaints about 40k is that it's just too much going on in it. And I think for new people into the hobby, so this is kind of weird, right? Warhammer 40k presents itself as, I am for the casual player. I've got stores on the high street. You can walk in as a 12-year-old and you can buy some Space Marines and play the game. However, the game itself is really complicated and really hard to play, and it's very intimidating for new people. One Page Rules has seen that, and they have basically said, well, here's a version of Warhammer 40k that is not intimidating. And that was where it kind of started, right? And I think that's awesome because it means that new people will get into the gaming side of the hobby. And I think there's a lot less people who don't play games in wargaming because Warhammer 40k is so intimidating and so inaccessible. I think if Warhammer 40k was more accessible, there'd be less people who just paint. I think more people would play the occasional game of Warhammer. But right now, it is so much effort and so much faff and so hard to play and so imbalanced, and you don't know what's good and you don't know what's not good. So many people don't play it because of those reasons, and I totally get why. I mean, I barely play it these days because I'm like, there's just too much going on here. And that's me. I play so many games. I play loads and loads of games. CHF says, have you seen Northern Exile's video about 10 edition, how he would design it? He is saying exactly the same thing as you. Love the content, thanks. No, actually, I haven't checked out really much of Northern Exile's content. I've heard bits and pieces here and there, but I haven't seen any of his design videos. But maybe I'll check it out if I see it come up in my recommended feed, definitely. So thank you so much, by the way, for the 5. And Partisan Gamer says it's a little ahistorical because of the metal tomahawks, not the mythical monsters. Well, I mean, the premise of the game is Mythic Americas, so I'm going to forgive, the quaterwalls, or whatever you call them, the giant birds. I'm going to forgive that side. The metal tomahawks, though, I mean, come on, we're getting a little bit, that's ahistorical. Inquisitor Vac, but I forgive it for that, Inquisitor Vac says, if you have mythic beasts, you may as well have metal tomahawks too. 100%. Take the concept and run with it. Ruckus Muckus says, I think the big problem is that Games Workshop games are designed to sell products. If something isn't moving, they get stupid powerful. Just look at Toy. Squads will be no different. Toy is a weird one. Toy's hard to balance, right? Because with Toy, they are very much focused on long-range firepower at the expense of everything else. And let me tell you, playing against a faction who is good at shooting at you at long range is not fun. Being on the receiving end of a barrage of artillery fire from across the map is not fun. It's not a playable experience. There's nothing you can do. You just have to sit and take it over and over. And the way that Games Workshop have designed 40k, where it's you go, I go, it's even exacerbated even further because it means that you don't get to do anything. It's not like the opponent fires off their long range shot at you and then you take it on one unit and then you activate your fast going guys and they can speed across the map and maybe get into a position where they can save your bacon. No, you have to just sit there. You rolled, you got second place, so now you've got to wait and you've got to take the shots. Your entire army gets decimated. You've got 40% of it left. You've basically lost. Now you got to trot across the map in order to get to them. It's not fun. It's not interactive at all. So that's the big problem with TIE. I think that's the big problem that they have. And I'm not sure. I think that what Games Workshop should have done was leaned into the coalition aspect of TIE, maybe a little bit more into the mechs. Even though I'm not a big fan of mechs, I think that maybe if they leaned into the mechs, leaned into the coalition aspect and made a sort of coalition of the willing with the TIE at the forefront of this kind of many different alien species, all who are specialized in certain tasks, I think that would have been a bit better. A lot more of a playable experience, in my opinion, sorry. One moment, just have a little drink here. So the 24th R says, hey Discourse, I think your videos are well thought out. I was wondering if it's due to your education/professional background. Thanks and keep it up. Maybe. It's hard for me to judge that sort of stuff, right? I mean, I only calls it as I sees it. But I mean, I have a legal background, and I'm used to sort of critiquing and analyzing things as part of my day job. So it could be the case. I came into YouTube late, I'm relatively old, I think. Oh God. So I think that definitely could have some impact on it. Tim Smith, I'm cautiously blah on the new squats. Oh no, I've jumped down. I don't know how to do this. I'm so useless at this chat business. The chat's going so fast. One Page Rules is okay, says David, but I like deeper games. It's a good alternative, definitely 100%. Mighty Muffin says, have you considered revisiting older editions like 4th or 5th and comparing them to current 40k or One Page Rules? Yes, I have actually. I have actually thought about that. Honestly, I've thought about just going back to 4th edition and just playing some games of it because that was the 40k version that I got into the game on. That's what I started playing with. And there's definitely a nostalgia element here, okay? I'm not going to say that, 4th edition was the best version of the game, but 4th edition was the version of the game that I learned. I came in, very late 3rd and then mostly played in 4th. So whenever I think of Warhammer and I think of my teenage years, I think of 4th edition. So definitely a nostalgia element. I kind of want to go back and play it the same way that I want to play mostly 8th edition of Fantasy, because that was the version that I played most of as well. I don't know if I would compare them to 40k or One Page base rules. Honestly, my plan at some stage is to review Bolt Action, and that's basically 4th edition Warhammer, 3rd edition Warhammer, like early versions of Warhammer, and compare that to 40k. Just with that or Gates of Antares, which is a game that no one knows about because the IP for it is terrible. Sorry, Warlord. I mean, I really want to like Gates of Antares, but it's just a very bland setting. I'm sorry. Tim Smith says, I've been playing since 2nd edition 40k, and the current rules book has me not even interested in playing. Yeah, I can see that. It's tough. Ryan Numbrick says, stratagems ruined 8th and 9th for me. I don't like stratagems. I don't mind the idea of them. I don't mind the idea of factions having special powers of some kind, but man, there are too many of them. They are too distinct. They are too focused on specific units, and most of the time they reward you for things that you were going to do anyway. I mean, that's kind of my problem with 40k in general. Oftentimes, units get rewarded for doing the stuff that they wanted to do. I think that in terms of game design, you should be looking at ways to reward players to do things that are suboptimal. And I think that's the best way to do it. Stratagems often just feel like, okay, do the good stratagem or, die. And I'm just not a fan of that at all. Got another donation there from Vas Maticorp says, Battletech really fixed the turn-based game issue where everyone takes turns moving mechs and all combat happens simultaneously. That's really interesting. So I've never played Battletech, and I've never actually seen the game played either. But the idea of simultaneous turns sounds really, really fun. That sounds like a real blast, to be honest. So I'm mostly used to there's obviously you go, I go, but I'm mostly used to alternating activations, which is I use a unit, you use a unit, and we kind of go back and forth that way. Or there's also the kind of I'm going to say Warlord game style, which is you've got the Bolt Action, for example, where there's a bag of dice, and some of them are colored for me, and some of them are colored for you, and we pull from the bag, and if I get one of my colors, I can activate a unit with that die, and if you pull one of your colors, you can activate a unit with your die, and so it's random. It's not you go, and then I go, and then you go, and then I go. It's anyone could go at any moment, so there's a little bit of unpredictableness of the order activation. I think that's really cool. I think that's really, really interesting. So I love to see more experimentation. This is another one of my problems with Games Workshop. They don't experiment with this sort of stuff. Although the new Kill Team was quite refreshing in the fact that they actually did mix it up a little bit. It's clear that they were inspired a little bit by Infinity, which I'm a fan of. I like the fact that they had taken some lessons from the market. I just think that there were other problems with Kill Team. Let's see. Paladin Prior lost the Griffin. Imperial Guard lost the Griffin. Maybe that was it. Maybe that was it. The Orc Inquisitor says, what changes would you want for 10th apart from rebalance? I haven't actually sat down and thought about it, but I'm pretty sure it would be very controversial, I'm sure, and it would be very wide and very sweeping. So maybe there's a video on that, actually. That's maybe something to think about. Maybe I'll steal Northern Exile's idea. Pro numeral 1446 says, I think you're being too hard on squats and just right on Games Workshop executives. That's fair. I mean, I knew that my opinion, my opinion on the squats were just straight my opinion. That was my first impressions of what I'd seen. That was it. That video was me basically standing in front of a camera giving you my first impressions. If more stuff comes out, that will change. I say in the video that I leave the door open to, me being proven wrong, like 100%. If I'm wrong about this, like I will make a video on that as well. Of course I will. My job now is to comment on things. So I will comment on that. And I will suitably give myself some lashings if I get it 100% wrong, although I suspect that I might be correct. That said, I hope that there is a brewer unit. I think there is. I wish there was a brewer. It's something that I think Beasts of Chaos have really been missing, some sort of alcohol-based monster of some kind, because, come on, the Beasts of Chaos are meant to be like satyrs, right? They're meant to sort of revel and stuff like that, and steal the booze, the whiskey of the human town whenever they come to raid the place. So I feel like there should be some more drunken animals and Beasts of Chaos. Come on, what's going on, Games Workshop? Sven5 says, there are some official documents of Warcraft devs being cancelled by Games Workshop. Warcraft was really meant to be a Warhammer license game. I don't want to crap on Warcraft as I do see people enjoying it. I like Warcraft. I grew up in Warcraft 3. Big fan of Warcraft. I loved World of Warcraft. Very sad to hear a lot of the allegations and the crimes that were committed at the time. Like, whoa, that was really sad to hear, because that formed a massive part of my childhood. I loved Warcraft. I spent many a year on World of Warcraft. Let me tell you, many a year. It's a virtual world. I still remember learning how to walk in World of Warcraft. I came across a bunch of role players and I asked them. I saw them. They were walking down the street in Stormwind, and I said, "How do you walk in this game? What hotkey is it?" And they were role playing. They were in character as the Scarlet Missionaries, and they said, "Why, you simply put one foot in front of the other." And then I followed them around saying, "No, but really, how?" Oh, I love World of Warcraft. That's such a good game. Nimbletack says, the thing is that it's not worth buying any of the 9th edition because 10th is around the corner. What's the point of buying rules that are going to be out of date by next year? Look, I have a big problem with the seasonality of the rule sets. Definitely 100%. Games Workshop operate on a time scale, because they feel beholden to do so. If they ever need a big year for money, if they ever need money to come in, they'll just release another edition. You'll know that Games Workshop are in a really tough spot if they just release another edition without too much fanfare and they haven't obviously been setting it up. That's when I expect that Games Workshop are in real trouble. I don't think they've ever had to do that, but I imagine that's what they would do if like the game was imploding or something. Just new edition. Mike Hendon says, for $5, thank you so much. That is so lovely. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That's so kind, so generous. I will say that the new squats are repackaged AT-43 Carmen, smoking cigars instead of bubble helmets when. Okay, number one, we need bubble helmets. Okay, we need bubble helmets, all right? Like, bubble helmets are incredible. I absolutely love them, especially if they're, like, clear plastic. That is so dangerous. And AT-43 Carmens, I don't know what those are. They're not the gorillas, are they? Are they the gorillas? I've heard people comparing them to gorillas, but I'm not 100% sure what they are. I'll take your word for it. For $5, I'll take your word for it. Okay, we got Piotr Jesk says, in my country, $450 average salary. New guy here's new army is around 1,000. Need books, paints, etc., and they 180 in other games. 100%. So one of the things I think that takes the shine off the new squats a little bit is that the Forge Fathers by Mantic Games exists. So, and the Forge Fathers are very classic squat. Games Workshop are obviously trying to make their own thing with the new squats, which is fine, but the Mantic games have already done sort of classic squats, and to be honest, I think they look a little bit better than what we've seen so far from Games Workshop, which is kind of rough for Games Workshop, because I don't want to be cruel. I quite like Mantic games. I like a lot of their models. I love their halflings. My goodness, they are adorable. I absolutely love them. I bought an army of them because I needed them in my life. Or I got them for Christmas, actually, as a gift. But, however, the Forge Fathers, I think, look better than Games Workshop models, and that's very rare. Usually, Games Workshop models look a lot better than the Mantic models. There's something very static about the Mantic models, although I do love assembling Mantic models. I think they're a lot of fun. So, it's kind of, it's rough going for Games Workshop when Mantic are pulling out better models than you are, in my opinion. David Boyle says, alternating unit activation. Yes, this is the best. Matt says, the only reason I'm tempted to play Necromunda is because someone's uploaded the rules sans la fluff, and even then, there's over 420 pages of the bloody thing. No game should have that many rules. Yes, thank you so much, Matt. Okay, so here's the thing with Necromunda, okay? I got into Necromunda in a really big way in 2019, I want to say. I really fell in love with the new version of it. By then, a lot of the issues with the 2017 version of the game had kind of been shook out. They weren't so problematic. I loved it. And I had an Escher gang. Well, I still have an Escher gang, but I was in a campaign and I was really loving it. They were called the Neon Banshees and they were totally badass. They were totally kicking ass and they were so cool. Then all the house books started coming out. So every single gang was starting to get house books. And we were in the middle of a campaign and some people were getting house books and some people didn't have house books. And it just introduced this huge layer of complication to the campaign. It was so like, how do we handle this? Like, some people are getting new toys, some people aren't. Some people are stronger than others. And the balance for the game was already pretty rough. It was already pretty rough. But then, whenever the Goliath got their book and they suddenly could be immune to toxins, and I'm like, Escher? I'm like, oh goodness. And then the Escher got their book, and their book was like not as good as the other books, so they're not as strong. And then other people are getting books, just so many of them. So do you need to play with those books? And that's before we get into the sort of core books that Necromunda needs. You know, this is kind of like, if you're an Orlok player, you want to buy the Orlok book. But there are at least 3 or 4 books for Necromunda that form the core gameplay experience. And, you know, how you want to get the trading shop is just awful. So, yeah, I think the official support for Games Work for Necromunda was just too much. Just far too much, because they needed to continue to sell things in order to justify the existence of the game. They needed to continue to sell, and that's so frustrating. Just let the game breathe for a while. Come out with an expansion every so often. Maybe do some fun updates. You've got a magazine called White Dwarf. Why don't you do some optional updates? And they, in their fairness, they do that sometimes, but they're also putting some really important objectives and things in those books as well, those magazines as well. So you've got all of this. It's just really hard to capture everything that you need. And this is before I start talking about things like the cards. They sold the cards separately, and I was trying to keep up. I was trying to get one because I'm sort of like the person who handles all of the bookkeeping and like all of the cards and things like that for all the players in the campaign. So trying to keep up with the cards was just so hard for me. And I ended up just falling out of it. And once I missed one pack, couldn't buy any of the others. I was like, you know what, I'm out. Screw this. And then they're now coming out with Ash Wastes, and I can just see the exact same thing happening with Ash Wastes, and it kills the hype for me. It means I'm not interested in the game. David Bull says remove invulnerable saves. I don't know. I don't think I'm too bad against that. Andrew says I would like to bring back index books for 10th edition. Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you for the $2. Yes, 100%. I totally agree. I would love to see index books again. I think anyone who wants balance in the game should be kind of in favor of index books. I mean, think of 3rd edition. 3rd edition Warhammer came with all the stats of all the armies inside the books at the time. It can be done again. It's just they don't want to. They just don't want to because they just wouldn't make as much money. Trencher with the donation 100 knock. I'm sorry, I don't know how much that is, but thank you so much. That is so kind of you. It really very nice. Very generous. I don't know if someone else mentioned it, but the squad armor looks vaguely toyish. Also, Wargames Atlantic got cool space dwarves called Einhanar. Yes, so they do look vaguely toyish, and I tell you what, I actually would have preferred to see TIE as part of a new TIE update with, you know, all these different armies, all these different aliens. I think I was mentioning before. I think that would have been pretty cool. I'm okay with the idea of them being a sort of like a goody kind of human faction. Like, I guess that's okay. I would prefer them to be a lot more punk, like NASA punk. I mean, look, I'm going to show you something here, okay? So this is lunar, all right? This is lunar. Look at this. You got a Soviet astronaut and an American NASA guy with a gun. The Soviet astronaut has a knife in his hand. How metal is that? That is so badass. And to be honest, that to me looks so much cooler than the squats, to be honest, from what I've seen. The squats, you know, just give me some real astronauts. They should have gone all out. Also, Wargames Atlantic got some cool space dwarves. Yes, Wargames Atlantic are amazing for proxies. Like, I think this is their business model, just to be proxies for Games Workshop games, because they sell some really incredible Imperial Guard stand-ins. Definitely. Wheelock says 40k copied from June. SW Foundation, I think it's Star Wars, Terminator, and Aliens. Very few original thoughts, but well packaged. Well, yeah, I mean, but everybody takes from everywhere, right? I think I did a video talking about the inspirations for every single faction, and I basically said where they kind of derive from. People took that as if I was kind of criticizing the game for that, but I'm not. I mean, I get it. Every single faction comes from somewhere, but of course it does. They're inspired by their sort of the cultural milieu that they have at the time. That's fine. I actually don't mind that at all. I think that's totally cool. Let's see, William Nichols says, can you do more one-page rules, bat reps? So battle reports are really tough. Battle reports are a very specific type of content. I usst to do battle reports for the Batman Minis game, and let me tell you, that was a tough thing to do. So there's a lot of editing that goes on in them, and they end up coming out like a 3-hour-long epic. Maybe not with one-page rules, but with Batman, they were coming out like 3 hours, unless you do a lot of really hard editing. And to be honest, I don't know if I would be very good at a battle report channel. Excuse me. The thing about battle reports is you kind of want to tell a story in the battle report. You know, what happened in the game. If you just show everything off as it happens without much narrative, it's not really that interesting to a lot of people. I mean, personally, I love it. And if you want to see really cool battle reports for games from all sorts of places, I'd say check out Guerrilla Miniature Games. I love their battle reports. But he does a video every single day, and I don't know how. I guess he just doesn't sleep. And you can tell, it doesn't get like a huge amount of views, and you can also tell that, you know, he's basically using a camera and he's looking from his perspective. Now, on the other hand, you get some people who do really crazy narrative battle reports. Zorpazorp used to be really good at this, and I think he started doing battle reports again. And they're good, but the amount of time and effort that goes into them, I mean, I'm trying to churn out a video every 4 days. I just couldn't get a battle report out in that time. It would be a really big project. Be really big. Plus, I think that there's a lot of battle reports out there. I know that for one-page rules, there isn't as many for maybe 40k, but there are some channels out there that do battle reports for them, I think. I do know that they get platformed by the one-page rule guys on their Discord, so it might be worthwhile checking that out. Let's see. Mad Penguin says, angry face. Hello, Mad Penguin. Hunkler says, StarCraft games developers were meant to make 40k, but they broke with Games Workshop, made their own game. It was originally 40k property. I can't remember. That might be an urban legend, but I can't remember. That's either true or untrue. I can't recall, so take that as a discourse certainty. Scython Nilo says, have played against Imperial Guard since the first match when I came back into the hobby January 2020. I know exactly what you mean. Yep. I have an Imperial Guard infantry army filled with heavy weapon teams, and they have never been good in any meta, and I love them. NH5316 says, definitely more one-page rules, bat reps. I really enjoy the game. I really like the game, especially for how quick and easy it is to get on the table, but you can check out my reviews for them. I do plan on covering more one-page rules stuff. I've been working with those guys to maybe get some more coverage on the channel, so we'll see what happens. Ryan Numeric says, Warhammer Fantasy Battles was also extremely derivative. It was presented and remixed well, but not terribly original. 100% agreed. Although I do like the fact that it was sort of a Holy Roman Empire, a Germanic sort of faction, were kind of the main human faction. I thought that was pretty unique. I really like that, because the Empire are like one of my favorite factions in any game, and you'll see that in my part 2 of the every Warhammer Fantasy Battles explained video. You'll see my love of the Empire shine through, I'm pretty sure. Nurbel says, I kind of tried my toy army recently in 9th edition. I hated how much rules. I collected what I thought was cool, so I lost 2 games in a row. So yeah, I kind of don't play 40k anymore. Yeah, I could see that. Funnily, I kind of have this problem with Dark Eldar as well. I just like playing Dark Eldar with just some of the units I picked up. There's certain things I don't like, the homunculi and stuff like that, I don't really enjoy in Dark Eldar. I really like Kabbalah warriors. I love the sculpts. I love assembling them. I love painting them. Well, I don't love painting them. I don't love painting anything. But you get it. They're one of the better things to paint for me. One of the first things I painted when I started painting again. So yeah, they're a lot of fun. But then I got buffed, and people were like, "I'm not playing with you, Discourse, because you're playing Dark Eldar." So I just stopped playing Dark Eldar, and it was really sad. Ryan says, and I love the old world. Don't get me wrong. Yes, absolutely adore it. Jim Sutter says 40k in 40 minutes was the best version of 40k. I don't actually recall that. Was that is that like a battle report or something from a channel? Matt says, "Oh, I kind of wanted." Oh no! I've lost myself. Let's scroll back up. Okay, and yep, totally lost. Okay, so we're at Trencher here, and let's see. We'll just have to jump right into the chat, guys. Sorry for anybody whose questions gets mixed. Roy Carr says, I say this as an OG squat collector. Okay, fair enough. Chris says, while I agree with the history, the fact that the history has 10,000 years of dark knowledge makes it fun. It helps explain why 2 Eldar armies fight. Yeah, sure. Lee Shepard says, Dungeon Saga soured me on Mantic. I don't actually know Dungeon Saga. So, yeah, hit me up on that. I don't know what that is. Forrest Wentworth says, Aaron Herger from the Wargames Atlantic are also plastic space dwarves. There's a lot of space dwarves, because obviously whenever Games Workshop stopped doing squats, there's a lot of people from those days who maybe were really into 40k at that time, who then went on to create companies, and they were like, dude, I remember there was a lot of people who enjoyed squats. Let's do some more squat stuff. So 100%. There's a lot of companies out there that do squats, and that means the Games Workshop actually has a little bit of competition to them. Monkey Boy 4, 5, 6, 7, is that? I don't know. My Latin numerals are not that great. I purchased the Kings of War Dwarf Mega Army for Christmas. Yes, actually, the Abyssal Dwarfs for Kings of War are also awesome. I really like the look of those. Elfbeat says, Wargames Atlantic also has sci-fi dwarves. Yes, they do. The Forge Fathers, they are. Dak Daniel says in AOS 2, Age of Sigmar, they specifically said they did not want to go into the Battletome treadmill. Has not aged well. Yeah, 100%. So Age of Sigmar 3 has been, 3rd edition has been very disappointing for me. Very disappointing. Yeah, I've a lot of people. So I originally got into Age of Sigmar. I kind of wasn't really into it, but then I got into Age of Sigmar because a lot of my friends are playing it, and now they've all dropped out because the app is changing. As armies get updated, you have to buy the things on the app, and they were using the app for their armies. They were buying models and using the app, and so it just, yeah, it soured a lot of people on there. Okay, and I've lost my spot again. I'm really rubbish at this chat thing, guys. Please bear with me. I mean, I said at the beginning of the stream that I'm basically a gremlin. This is the truth. David Brunfield says, would 40k be more balanced with an alternating activation? I think that there's more capacity for balance with alternating activation. I think it allows the designer to do a little bit more, but I don't think necessarily. I mean, if you look at Infinity is one of the most balanced games, one of the most competitive games in the wargaming space, and it doesn't have alternating activations. Infinity has a strange sort of hybrid where you activate all your models and you don't have to activate all of them. You get like a certain number of activations and your opponent can react to your activations. It's kind of a complicated game, but it's definitely one of the most competitive games ever made. And they don't do you go, I go. They don't do alternating activations. So definitely, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily the truth. I just think it's easier to get a competitive game out of alternating activations, definitely. Organ Wizard says, have you ever tried Star Wars Legion? Yes, I have. I actually have an Imperial army, a Galactic Empire army. Yes, no clones here, all human, baby. And I have a portion of a Rebellion army as well. So OT, I'm into my OT. I know that all the memes have brought back prequel trilogy stuff, but I'm OT. And let's see here. Oh. Whew. Okay, right. There wasn't a nuclear bomb or anything, I don't think. I think I'm okay. Okay, is this thing live? I feel like I'm in a Command and Conquer cutscene or something. I just got cut out. Oh my goodness. Someone does not like the Frasier merch changes. I think my camera just ran out of battery, basically. I thought I had it plugged in, but I didn't. So, my bad, guys. That's technical on my side. I need a producer. I need a Roz. Come on. I'll have to ask Dana. Maybe she'll be my Roz. That would be incredible. Please screen the chat, please. Okay, let's scroll back up. Let's see what I missed. Okay. So let's see. So we've got Scythe and Nilo says, have you seen Northern Exiles? Oh, wait, no, I've already done this. I've done this bit. Come on. Okay, let's see. We got Andrew. So sorry, anybody whose questions I'm missing. Like, my apologies for that. Vast Musty Corp, completely lost. Here we go. Love, let's see. Let's see. David Bull says GW needs to write a 40k history and stick to it. I kind of agree and kind of disagree a little bit. I'm not sure if I don't know if they'd be very good at that. If you ever look at like Warcraft or anything like that, Metzen had a written in stone history for the longest time and they just kept retconning things. I think that would happen to Games Workshop as well. Even if they had like a big in-game Bible or in-company Bible, I think that they would still end up just tearing out pages and reinserting new stuff. Bear in mind, the Black Library is constantly adding more lore and the Black Library never ends, okay? The Black Library needs to keep on creating books. So I think you're always gonna get contradictions and issues. Mike Hendon, yep, hello Mike, yes, thank you. So I'm just gonna scroll, I'm gonna scroll all the way down. So apologies for anybody that I miss here. I'm gonna try and catch up a little bit. Let's see what's going on. Never been tempted to try Malifaux or Infinity, Discourse says Matt. Oh, I've been attempted. So one of the things so Malifaux, first of all, I do quite like the setting. I love all that kind of steampunk horror sort of stuff. Horror is my favorite genre. So I do like Malifaux. It has a really interesting vibe to it. The thing that pisses me off is apparently the assembly is really tough. That's really tough. And I also worry it uses a very innovative sort of system where you use cards to find out who's winning and who's not. Like you use cards to basically determine fate, rather than dice rolls. And I'm kind of concerned that I would miss the dice, but I think for one game in your roster of games, that's probably fine. So I kind of want to try it. Infinity, I have played. I've only played a couple of beginner games. I haven't played like a real game, and I think it's N1 I've played. And that's kind of fun. My problem is with Infinity is that none of the factions really speak to me. I'm not like a huge fan of that kind of cyberpunk aesthetic, so I kind of have a bit of a hard time kind of finding a faction. And I think that's really important in a game to enjoy the armies. So I'm just going to keep scrolling down until I see a big highlighted comment. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to just skip through and catch up a little bit. Vaz Masticorp says, Q will be right back with elevator music. Yes, my apologies for that. Technical issues, which if you've watched any of the videos, you probably know there's plenty of those. Solar Grey says, I like the Forge Fathers from Dead Zone, but Games Workshop players where I live seem kind of closed off to any other system or art. Is it similar in the UK? I think it sort of depends. I find with war games, so with war games in general, they're very community driven, so it really depends on your local area. If I were to go into my local Games Workshop store, which used to be the only real place to play, here in Belfast, then I would have a really hard time selling them on Forge Fathers. Even if I was to like meet up with somebody and go play at their house or something, they'd probably be a bit like, I don't know. But if I were to go down to my local club, which is a non-profit organization that is mostly sort of based on, it gets a lot of charity money and things like that, and is run for the local community, I think that they would be fine with whatever I brought, with whatever I brought at all. So it really just depends on where you play. The UK has a big history of war games, I think, compared to America. I think with America, it definitely feels, I don't know, so I'm speaking completely ignorantly here. This is just based on my sort of what I've picked up here and there, but I get the impression that in America, it's more played at home, and there's more of a sort of corporate atmosphere about it, because I think the Games Workshop did a really good job of infiltrating the local scenes in America and really dominating the discourse over there, and really getting people into the ecosystem. I think in America it's been bought into a lot more. Because the UK is an older market, there's just been more time for other games to percolate and for other communities to grow. There's a local community, to me, that play the Batman Minis game, and I bet you like the vast majority of people listening to the stream have never heard of the Batman Minis game. So it just depends on where you are. I think that overall, no matter where you go in the world, you're always gonna be able to find a Warhammer game of 40k, mostly 40k, less so Age of Sigmar, but you're always gonna be able to find somebody who plays Warhammer 40k. You can't say that about every game. Although, I think that's becoming a little bit more true of Infinity. I really feel like Infinity are really big right now. Same with Battletech. Battletech had a big boon last year. Whether or not that can hold, because I've seen games rise before, I hope that they can maintain that. 100%. 100%. Let's see, now I'm just going to scroll real hard. Yes, apologies for the stream just kind of cutting off there. GW's lawyer is struck. Okay. Yes. Okay. So I'm all caught up in chat now. So apologies everyone if I missed your comments. Lizzie Lai says, "Hey Discourse, it's nice to see you live. What other alternative game systems do you recommend other than One Page Rules, Infinity, etc.?" Oh wow. So there's a lot. So firstly, I think if you're someone who's like, I have only ever played Games Workshop games, what game should I play? My advice would be to check out the following channels. Check out Guerrilla Miniature Games. Guerrilla Miniature Games basically covers every single miniature game out there. I mean, not all of them, but he has battle reports for the vast majority of them. So go there, just check out his streams. He does playlists based on genre. So he has a different day, he does a different genre of game. I'd say check those out. Just look at some battle reports, look at some reviews that he does of the books, and just see what captures your interest. Secondly, I would also say to check out Cement Saw. He is a smaller channel, but he definitely deserves a lot more views. He's basically reviewing a lot of different games. I would say check him out. He does a lot of smaller games. He reviews a lot of kind of more indie games, and a lot of them are really fun. I think his review style is really good. Very clear, very coherent, very concise where it needs to be. So I think he's really good. I'd say check out those two channels, see if you find any games that you enjoy. But otherwise, I would say, look, it's kind of hard. I think most people are going to go for the IPs that they enjoy. They're going to go for the sort of intellectual properties, but be careful of that. There's lots of miniature agnostic games that are really fun. Some of the games that I'm having the most fun with are miniature agnostic, and I'm just using my normal miniatures in. So I've been playing a lot of Ragnarok recently. That's pretty fun. That's literally billed as a heavy metal game where you just play Vikings trying to kill one another and steal god shards. That's a lot of fun. I've also been really enjoying, I've been painting up for Mythic Americas, which is its own little kind of mini IP, but it's not based on anything sort of already like Star Wars or anything like that. Although I'm going to immediately break my own rule and say that I've been quite enjoying Fallout Wasteland Warfare as well. I think if I were to really critically analyze Fallout Wasteland Warfare, it wouldn't do well. I think there's a lot of bespoke mechanics. There's a lot of things that it doesn't do great that are kind of problematic with it, but it has an incredible co-op and solo play mode that I really enjoy, and I want to encourage more companies to do solo and co-op game modes. The problem with Warhammer 40k, I think, is that it's a competitive game. It's kind of a problem with it. It can only be played you versus me. That's kind of an issue. If the game was a co-op game, though, I think they could get away with having a lot more balance issues in the game. In fact, I think that that's probably a better version of the game. That's something I think the Games Workshop would be better at making, a co-op game. Although, I say that, but Curse City, if you've ever seen that played or heard about mechanics in that game, ooh, maybe not. So, sorry. Hey Damien, welcome to the channel. Thank you for joining as a member. You get to have silly little emojis with my faces on them. So welcome, thank you very much for joining. And Kaylee Anderson, thank you so much for the £5 donation. That is so lovely. Thank you. Kay, I'm really sorry at the community with lack of store support. I'm releasing MUMG for 6 months. Oh, yes, Marvel Universe. Yep, for 6 months to sell off old stock before they had the license yanked. Yeah, So this is why you don't hear me advocate that anyone play the Batman Minis game, even though it's the best game I've ever played. Night Models run that game, and unfortunately, I think they've mismanaged the game in a lot of ways. They struggle a lot. Now, the thing about Night Models is that they are a small company. They are literally, I'm pretty sure, 3 guys in a shed somewhere, so I forgive them a lot more than I would Games Workshop. Games Workshop have a lot of money, a lot of employees. I don't think they have as many excuses. With Night Models, they have very few resources, and they're also Spanish, so they suffer from not being able to speak English very well, so there's translation issues and things like that. But nevertheless, they have a lot of manufacturing issues. They have a lot of issues with distributors and getting stock out on time, which means I just can't advocate that you play the game, really. I mean, I really enjoy the game itself. The community that play Batman are incredible, but yeah, as Kaylee says, 100%, Night Models have really soured a lot of people. I don't think they've supported their games well enough, and I think they have a tendency to jump on to new projects willy-nilly. Like they get, I think they're kind of like magpies. They go for the next thing, but I think they should stop for a second and just help the community build the current game as it stands right now, and really focus on getting the game into a good place and then expanding on it. Definitely. Let's see here. Kevin says Malifaux feels great. The Atmosphere Infinity feels good as well. Just different feels to 40k. Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's room in this marketplace for so many different games. War games. I mean, I'm of the opinion that we're in the golden age, and it's getting more golden, I guess. And the more people that begin to try different games, I think the better it's going to get. I mean, can you imagine if all anybody played in the video games was like Doom or something? Okay, maybe Valorant, say, a more popular game. If all anybody played was Valorant, and there was like maybe a couple of other indie games here and there, but no one really played them, the video games market would be awful. Of course it would be awful. There wouldn't be as many people playing it. But I think war games is starting to get a little bit more dispersed, and I think that actually there's been a lot of awesome content creators on YouTube who are helping to platform a lot of other games. So that's really awesome to see. Let's see. Luke says, long live Votan. Said, yes. Let's see here. Winters says, nice to see you live. Thank you. It's really lovely to be live. It's a lot of fun, actually. Ryan says, I really love the card system in Malifaux. It's really interesting. It's very different. So I'm really curious. I want to play it. Okay, now you're making me want to play it. All right. Let's see. Cyberash says, squats were amazing. Chaos squats were the best. You know, I actually haven't really seen Chaos squats that much. The squats were slightly before my time. I don't really have any nostalgia for squats. Maybe this is what I'm missing. But then the new squat didn't really look like the old squat, so what's the nostalgia for? Yabba Dabba Doon what a name. Says, my locals, Warhammer is lame for wanting anything, not Games Workshop. Oh, that's sad to hear. Tasha says, UK has been playing war games for hundreds of years. Yes, they have. I belong to a community. People are gonna scratch their heads on this one. I belong to a community called the International Kriegsspiel Society. And this is a war game. So this is like the war game that the Austrian generals were playing, like back in the olden days. You require an umpire who kind of looks at the map and sees where all the forces are arrayed, and then the different armies, you know, one's playing the French and one plays the English, for example, they're in different rooms, although it's all done in like chat channels these days on like Discord, but they're in different rooms, and so they don't get to see the map either. They're basically trying to draw their own map based on what their scouts are telling them, so they don't know where the opponent is, not for real, and the umpire is basically determining all the dice rolls, and they're saying like, okay, so this is happening, and they come in and they basically tell you, you know, oh, your left flank is suddenly under attack by cavalry, and you're like, I didn't know there was cavalry there. So that's a lot of fun. The UK, Europe in general, has been playing war games for a really long time. Generals, military tacticians, war games has a really long lineage there. It has a really long lineage. And now it's kind of mixed up with the TTRPG, with role-playing and things like that. I think it's awesome. Although, let's be honest, Austrian generals were always kind of role-playing, weren't they? They 100% were. Monkey Boy says, Mrs. Discourse, have you ever thought of doing a collaboration podcast? I would love to do a podcast. I have a lot of thoughts. And I need to get them out of my head. So yeah, I would love to do a podcast at some stage if the right co-hosts were around. Cyberash says, Ryan, what faction and what keyword you use. Oh well, that's not for me. So you guys sort that out. Oh, and I've just got Igor Slagathor has donated $20. Thank you so much, Igor. Thank you. That's really kind of you. Wow. That's incredible. You do a great job with your videos. They always provide me with a chuckle. That's awesome. So I've always wanted the videos that, even if they are critical, even if they are negative, because let's be honest, there's a lot to criticize in the hobby these days. I've always wanted to make sure that they're entertaining, that you don't go into the video and you just get hit over the head with just, oh, this is bad, isn't it? I want people to enjoy the video still all the same, because I think we have to. I mean, if we can't laugh, then we'd cry, right? So I'm really glad that you find it entertaining. I'm just awesome that people find value in the videos themselves. Is it true that you work in the field of law where you're at? Does that carry over how you read rules in gaming? Any plans to visit the US? Yes, it is true. I do work in the field of law. I'm not going to tell you much more than that for my own. So I mean, I don't want to work in the field of law, but I need to work in the field of law for a while, because I'm being kicked out of my house. So I need to find somewhere new to live. So I need a steady job right now. But maybe once I move, I might leave it. So yes, I work in the field of law. It doesn't really carry over how I read rules in gaming. To be honest, most of the rules I've read in wargaming have been tougher than legislation or like European law, commission law, or anything like that, or regulations. War games are tougher than that, so I think people overestimate how complicated laws are. Because, for example, with the NDA the Games Workshop produced there last year, when that all sort of bubbled up and leaked out, and people were like, what does this mean? What does the NDA mean? Yes, there's some stuff in there that if you didn't have any legal knowledge at all, you would have no idea what it meant or what it was saying. But for the vast majority of it, it basically meant what it said. It was in plain English. And that's what a lot of legal stuff is. It's in plain English. You just need to know the precedents. You need to know kind of the context of them and what the language is doing, like what role it serves in the document. Whereas I find that war games rulebooks often, they're either fine, they're either just nice and simple, or they're just too complicated for their own good. There are rules in Warhammer 40k codices that I scratch my head over and I go, this did not need to look like this. This is poor writing style. You have judgments in the High Court that are that are less onerous to read than this is. And do I have any plans to visit the US? Yes, I would love to visit the US. So I actually love the US, especially, look, okay, here's the thing, right? I am a big fan of theme parks. Okay, don't hate on me for this, but I absolutely adore theme parks, and America has some of the most incredible looking theme parks in the world. Disneyland and things like that, Universal, Six Flags, all that jazz. I really, really want to visit there. I really want to visit them. But aside from that, I also want to get over for some cons as well, because I've been hearing all these stories about Adepticon and how awesome it was, and I'm like, oh, I need to go. So maybe next year I'll try and get over for Adepticon. I've applied actually for, just by the by, I've applied to maybe try and get over to the UK Games Expo. I think I might have left it too late, but I've applied for like a press pass. So maybe if that works out, I might go over to the UK. Travel's kind of gnarly right now, so I don't know how well it would be, but I'd love to get over to the UK. So thank you so much for your donation. Okay, we got Tim Smith. I'm old, so I grew up with Avalon Hill, Punch, Counter War games. Many started for me in my 20s. Wow, okay. Hello, Tim. You're venerable, definitely, 100%. I love watching games like Ogre get played. I've played quite a bit of Fantasy Trip. I really enjoy it. It's so silly. Like, I think if you want to play a sort of a better version of D&D, and like a better combat version of D&D, I would recommend you try Fantasy Trip. You get these little tokens and you go on the map, and it's a hexagon map, and man, it is so much fun. You just have to be prepared that as a fighter, for example, you don't have like special abilities. You're not like using your one ability that you have. You just have to do stuff like, I chuck a dagger at them and see if that works, and you try to sneak up behind people and bash them on the back of the head. It's so much fun. I really enjoy it. I really love a lot of those old school war games. The Goatman says, ever tried War Machine or Hordes? It's by Privateer Press. Gotta love seeing punk robots fighting with Napoleon era riflemen against Witch Doctor Gitterman summoning Swamp Hearts. Yes. I haven't actually. I've heard a lot about it, especially from more competitive players. And I've heard it talk. So the context I have heard War Machine spoken about more is in the context of game design. Apparently that game was designed very, very well, but I haven't played it, unfortunately, so I can't really comment too much on that. Evolution of Gaming says, don't think Games Workshop cares about that. They just heard a lot of chat from the community about squats. They think they can make money from them, even though really has any yet. Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're doing squats because they think they can make money from them, 100%, which, I mean, framed another way, it's something that people want. And I don't mind people getting what they want. I just think that sometimes there needs to be restraint. So I think that a game works better if there is a little bit of restraint. I don't think that everybody should get everything they want all the time. I think that different games should have different appeals, different people, and things like that. But I mean, I'm not opposed to squats existing in the game at all. I mean, they used to. Ryan Nurmick says, Adepticon, yes. It sounded so much fun. Oh my god, I can't believe I missed it. Forrest Wentworth says, gotta disagree about war games being easier than regular. A lot of the Code of Federal Regulation in the US is suboptimal. Maybe with the US. So I don't know anything about the US law apart from well, I'm actually not going to reveal the field. That might be a little bit too much. I know some banking. I know some financial law, but yeah, that's based in America. But yeah, I mean, okay, sure, but maybe I'm being a little bit facetious. But war games can be tough. War games can be tough. I can completely agree. In my third of a year of an LLB, yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with that. So I actually found third year the funnest because you got to choose a lot of your courses. First year was great because it was all criminal law, and the second year was just like, here's all the financial law. Have you ever heard of land law? Oh boy, that was not fun. That was not fun at all. Rock Golem says. The Italian translation of Kill Team 2 had actual sentences that made no sense thanks to a translation that did not understand the use of negation in sentences. Well, I'm very sorry to hear that. That really blows. You'd think the Games Workshop would be really good at that sort of stuff, though. You'd think the Games Workshop would be better at that. I mean, they got the money for it. Come on. Trencher1375 says, okay, I might have a good one. You too, Trencher. You too. Have a good one. Ryan says, that is 100% on brand for me. Damien, I think they should have finished with the other missing codices before bringing out squats. So I think that there's definitely an element of people being a little bit upset about squats because of the fact that there are still armies in the game that have not been fleshed out. So we still need Imperial Guard stuff. Now, likely Imperial Guard stuff is going to come out before squats, but it kind of, people get a little bit like, this is where your attention is, you're building squats. Not like in practice, of course. Games Workshop are likely, they've got many people designing many things at any one time. So they can definitely allocate people to work on squats while they also work in Imperial Guard. Definitely. But the issue is that Games Workshop do love to focus on certain things. And for example, Space Marines. Whatever sells, right? Whatever sells the most. Imperial Guard, people who've played Imperial Guard have felt really left out in the cold recently. If you're a Tyranid player, like, my condolences. I mean, I feel kind of bad for the Genestealer cults, because they only got a single unit, the Reductus Saboteur, in the last Codex update, and it's in a box that you still can't buy that separately. I complained about that, and people were like, oh, well, you know, it'll probably be released separately. And my response is, when? Because it's not released now. What, am I going to have to wait a year or something for this? I mean, that's really bad, right? Like, that. If I want to buy Reductus Saboteur, I should be able to pick up a Reductus Saboteur. But that's all the Genestealer cult's got, which is a special elite unit on top of more special elite units, which is the vast majority of that codex. So it's kind of rough to see the squats come out, and you're still waiting on cool things for your army. I totally get that. I totally 100% get that. Let's see. Charles Marlowe, thank you so much for the donation of $6.666 from Canada. Thank you so much. Quid agi. Okay, right. So I'm getting asked Latin things now. I'm guessing this is a legal term of some kind. Let's see. I do. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm gonna let down the side here. I don't know this. I'm sorry. My apologies for that. Cyberash says, the Brewmaster crew gets your opponent drunk so they can't fight and poison them with alcohol poisoning. That is pretty badass. That's pretty awesome. Demon says, I used to play Chaos Knights, and Imperial Guard. I have a friend, they played a lot of Chaos, really enjoyed it. I used to play Imperial Guard. Finmark says it's not that good of a model. Well, yeah, that's kind of so a lot of my aesthetic problems are just aesthetic problems, and they're not like the worst thing in the world, right? There are other things. It just means it's not an army I'm interested in. Really, the core problems that I have is that they're going to be super expensive, they're going to be monopose, and they're going to have just all the problems of modern Games Workshop trappings, and that kind of blows. And people are like, you've only seen one model, you can't judge that yet. Yeah, but I've seen releases from Games Workshop over the last year. I mean, how can I not take that into account? Of course I must take that into account. So whenever I see all these people saying that they're really hyped for the new models, I have to say, but why? They haven't done anything that hasn't been a little bit predatory in like the last year or two or 3 or 4 or 5 years. So why are you expecting them to do something here that doesn't blow? You know, I think people misread the fact that I'm critical of a lot of Games Workshop stuff as if I'm happy about that, or that I want that to be the case. I do not want that to be the case 100%. My video on squats could have been something like, wow, I'm really looking forward to squats. I wonder what sort of weapons they will have. I wonder what sort of gameplay function they will have. How could they be designed? These are all interesting things to me. These are all interesting questions. And they're very easy to do compared to being critical and analyzing what is the impact of this army. Like, what kind of impact has this got on the business practices? How does the business model of Games Workshop interact with the actual game itself? And how is it reflected in that way? Those are really hard questions to ask. Like, you have to think about that. But people think for some reason that posting critical content is just some sort of clickbait exercise in order to just, I don't know, that it's easy content in some way, and that's not the case at all. I think that being critical is actually really tough, especially with things that you love. It's hard to be critical about things that you love. That's why it's actually quite rare for critical content to be big on YouTube. I don't think that that's the case. I mean, you look at the vast majority of content creators for Warhammer, most of them, the biggest ones, are generally pretty positive. They're generally pretty positive about Warhammer, about Warhammer products and things like that, you know. So I just don't see where all the sort of it's negative for negative sake stuff comes in. Latin is a dead language. Yes, it is. I actually had to study Latin at school, and it was tough. I didn't enjoy it. Wargaming Leader says, release female Space Marines. Okay. I'm not touching that. My opinion on female Space Marines is pretty clear. Replace all Space Marines with women. Have Space Marines be replaced by Sisters of Battle, and have Space Marines roam around the galaxy in giant warships as crazy mad monks in their own space monasteries, and each of them are super extremist in a certain way as dependent on their gene code. Make them slaves to their biology like Games Workshop want them to be. Games Workshop say that they are super powerful biological soldiers. Let's make them a little bit more grimdark, and let's make them crazy. That's my opinion. Okay, and there's an argument now in chat about Malifaux versus Conquest. I can't comment. I haven't played either of them. I've seen a lot of Conquest. My problem with Conquest is that it's a slightly bigger scale than other games, and that just kind of makes me a little bit like, maybe I don't want to play that. Also, Parabellum, I think I've been flirting with a lot of the business practices of Games Workshop. This is just as an outsider looking in. It looks like they've been flirting with sort of having a strong IP and leveraging that in order to drive prices up. So, let's see. One moment. Okay, we got Felix Stone Foam Ford says 40k died with the release of 6th edition, while players have now as a shambling zombie of a game system that used to be fun. Yeah, I mean, I remember Warhammer 40k being fun, definitely. I remember really enjoying it. Now, that said, I can still have fun with 40k every so often. But usually, it consists of a game that doesn't include any stratagems, is played drunk, and mostly it's just about dice rolling. I used to play 40k kind of competitively. I used to play it according to the meta. I used to play it sort of with really trying to win. And I stopped having fun with it. I couldn't keep up because I wanted to play other games as well. And it's really hard to keep all of the Warhammer 40k stuff in your head whilst also playing other games. Conspiracy? Is this why the game is so complicated? Maybe. Yeah, so I just started playing it casually. I just decided, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just not going to care anymore. I'm just going to play it really super casually. I'm going to play it more for the narrative experience, and I've had a lot more fun. Basically just walking into the game, rolling a bunch of dice, and there we go. I actually get into arguments all the time with Arbiter Ian about this, because I'm always saying that the game should be competitive in some way, and Arbiter Ian's perspective, generally, to me at least, I don't want to mischaracterize him or anything, but his opinion seems to be generally that the game is really tough to balance, right? And the game's never really truly been balanced, and it shouldn't be really an objective of Games Workshop to balance the game, that it should be more about creating a fun game and just letting people, play it in that way. And I sort of agree with him. That's basically how I play the game, but I also feel that if the game is advertising itself, if it appeals to competitive players, then it should seek to also give a competitive experience. But this is kind of the curse of games of Warhammer. It's trying to be all things to all men, and that's really tough to do. Ariel Sanchez says, I didn't like the Zinch book until I learned that most minis is both 40k and AOS. They look way better for me since then. Firstly, thank you so much for the donation. Yes, that is 100% true. That is 100% true. I really like the demon factions because of this. I hate it when demons get things that are specific to their world, if they're specifically fantasy or specifically 40k. I don't like that. I like it when they're an army that can be played in either game. I think that's super cool. I think that's really neat. That's always been really neat to me, and it has always earned demons a specific codex book, in my opinion. I think that demons, even if you were to fold all of chaos into sort of codex with chaos space marines, chaos imperial guard, well, you know, like the chaos renegades and rebellions, if you were to fold those all together, I'd still make a codex for demons. If I was to prune loads of other factions, I'd always keep a codex for demons, because I would want demons to also have a codex in Age of Sigmar, which means that you could take the one army and play them in both games. That would be awesome. That would be so cool. Okay, let's see here. So Charles Marlowe says, play 40k with whatever edition and house rules you like. Basically, I mean, no one's stopping you, but I often hear this kind of argument that no one's stopping you from playing older editions, but they kind of are, right? Like, if you walk into a game store, it's going to be a really hard time for you to sort of go, okay, well, do you want to play this old version? I got this 4th edition rulebook. It's tough to get games going that way. Most people want to play what's new and what's the newest and latest game. Same with the season model, by the way. You can't just opt out of these books. People are going to want to play with these books, and they're going to want to keep up with these books. You can't opt out of them. It's gonna infiltrate. If you play publicly at all, if you don't just play with like your partner or something, then you're going to have a really hard time getting away from these books. It's gonna infiltrate. It's going to be part of your world. And so if you just want to play 4th edition, it's going to be really hard to do that. Now, you can arrange circumstances where you play 4th edition, but just because you can do that doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. All right. And look, one of the biggest strengths of Warhammer 40k is that you can walk anywhere and play it. If I'm playing 4th edition, well, I'm losing that ability. I can't play it anywhere anymore. Now it's only a bespoke experience. And okay, here's a hot take. There are better games than Warhammer 40k, and if I'm going to start going to the hassle of having to play alternative versions, I'm just going to play a different game. I'm sorry. Warhammer 40k's biggest benefit, its biggest boon, is that it can be played anywhere. And yes, there are some other things. Like, I do think it makes for a good beer and pretzel game if you ignore a lot of stratagems and things like that. I just will play other games if I really want to play a bespoke experience. Wow. Okay, Igor. $100. Wow. Thank you so much. Kind of in shock about that. That's incredible. Thank you. Here's a little something, Chica, to help you either with you needing to move or any of your future adventures of travel. Have a good one, homie. Thank you so much. A little monkey emote as well. That is so kind. Thank you so much, Igor. That's actually a huge help because the whole house moving thing has been pretty stressful. I'm pretty sure I'm being evicted because of the fact that when they walked in, or they didn't walk in, they had pictures of the place for the, they wanted to inspect it, right? Because I live in a rented accommodation. They saw the green screen, and I think they were like, well, okay, what's this person up to? This massive green screen, this big banner with green everywhere. They were like, okay, no, you don't get to do that here, whatever it is you're up to. So, so I can thank the YouTube for that. But thank you so much, Igor. That is really lovely of you. That is so generous. Thank you so much. The Dyslexic Dragon says the Crazy Marines isn't that the Black Templars? Yes, if I owned them, they would be. If I was creating, so I have the sort of beginnings of a Sisters of Battle army. I've got a bunch of Sisters of Battle that I've had for a while that are just completely unpainted. And if I ever do them, I would love to be able to freehand. So the reason why I want to be able to freehand, I can't, by the way, I'm rubbish at painting, but I would love to be able to freehand so that I could paint like face tattoos on them. I think that Dark Tide, the new game coming out from, oh, I've forgotten their name, but they also do the Warhammer Fantasy game. I'm drawing a blank. But Darktide is the new sort of game coming out from them. It's like a 40k game. You run around killing hordes of enemies. And they're all, like, they're Imperial Guardsmen, they're an Ogrin and stuff like that. And they all have face tattoos with, like, the Imperium sigil. And that was like, yeah, that is exactly what it's like to live in the Imperium. These people are nuts. They've got very big, I'm from Buenos Aires, and I say kill them all sort of attitude. That's kind of how I imagine everyone living in 40k. And so therefore, if you're a Sister of Battle, I imagine you're nuts. You're absolutely nuts. So I would love to be able to freehand, like tattoos on the face of them that just say kill, just say the word kill. These are Sisters of Battle. These are like holy, these are nuns for the Emperor of Mankind. They are crazy. They are all about very, very bad things. And I would love to be able to freehand all sorts of graffiti, like kill, kill, kill on the sides of their tanks and stuff. That would be badass. That would be badass. I really love that aspect of the Sisters of Battle. It's why I like the Sisters of Battle more than the Space Marines, because the Space Marines are very sort of like, you know, we're kind of tactical. We're kind of cool that way, you know. They still have some elements of that. It's why I like the Black Templars. But the Sisters of Battle are just where it's at for me. I think they're nuts. I think that's great because it's very firmly 40k. If I want sort of other types of sci-fi, I can get that. I can get that other places. Okay, LC says, have fun with AOS by being extremely casual. I think that's totally the way. Basically, the way that I play Age of Sigmar is that I have a Beastman army and I play mostly against an elf player, and I just imagine that I'm here to attack his village, and that's like my goal. So I just do that, and that's fun. It helps because his village is always safe. Because I always lose. Although maybe less now. I haven't played since the update, since the new Rand update. Fumark says more Bald Sisters. Yes. The Dog Shop asks, do you think it's likely Space Marines will ever again be like they used to, and how much why modern Marines are problematic and less interesting in your opinion? Wow. Okay. So I mean, Primaris definitely. So one of the things I have with Primaris, right, is that I know that there's lots of people who really enjoy Space Marines, who really enjoy the vibe of Space Marines, and they think the Primaris have got a lot less personality. But for me, as someone who doesn't play Space Marines, I go, do they? I mean, they look a little bit different, yeah. My big problem with the Primaris designs are the new vehicles and the jetpacks and stuff like that. I mean, I don't think that those things are as interesting with the anti-grav technology. I don't really like that. I prefer the sort of the big, the Assault Marines, for example, with the jetpacks that go with fire. But my opinion of Space Marines will always be, I like them in 4th edition. Because I like the versions that I have seen of them in other media. I like them in Dawn of War, for example. And so whenever I think of Space Marines, I always think of Dawn of War more than on the tabletop, because when I think of them on tabletop, they're this hodgepodge conglomerate of all these different styles and different vibes. So I've got a really tough time with them there. Elsie says, oh, do you find tip marker to do those kinds of tattoos? Yeah, I really should do. I really should start trying. Maybe I will. Maybe that'll be like a project that I do. Okay. Wargamer says, I like to hit boob armor and nipple fleur-de-lis. Okay. Oh, okay. Can I be demonetized on a stream? Am I allowed to talk about nipple fleur-de-lis? So yeah, I get it. So they're definitely very ornate. I don't really have an opinion on them because I came to Sisters of Battle very young in my life, so maybe I've just been like indoctrinated into the Emperor's cult. But I think it's kind of okay. I know that it's kind of played out. The design philosophy is played out in a lot of different areas. It's like very similar. And I've seen versions of the Sisters of Battle that don't really have the boob armor, and I think it looks great. So I'm okay with it. I don't really mind either way. I could go either way, but I don't really have any strong feelings on the matter. Joseph Scazzari says, absolutely, Felix, so to me, Chaos Armies are a mix of mortals and demons. My best memories of all Games Workshop is playing Chaos Armies back then at around 10k points on a 6x8 table. You are mad. You are mad, Joseph. I could not do that. So I remember when Apocalypse first came out and everybody was like, 10k points. Yeah, let's have the biggest games of Warhammer ever. And I'm sitting here going, I think a normal game of Warhammer is pretty long. I don't know if I could stand there. I get it as like a weekend event. I think it would be kind of fun to get really drunk and like, you know, just hang out and play this really crazy game of it. But I don't think I could play it like for real, you know, like as a sort of experience of 10k. I always get really nervous about like the amount of sort of work and effort that it takes to put those armies on the table in the first place. Never mind take them back off or play with them on the table. Fat Shark are doing Dark. Yes, Fat Shark are the one doing Dark Tide. Yes, 100%. Okay, that's who it was. I can remember them. Wade A. Parker, love the Starship Troopers reference. Yes, yeah, definitely. I always think I love Starship Troopers. One of my favorite sci-fi movies ever. Dan says, thanks, Igor, you're a Russian oligarch. Ooh. Oh, no. That dark money coming into the Discourse miniatures. Paul Duckmanton says, hello, Discourse. Thank you for the great content regarding Space Marines. Beakies were the peak. Yes, I am old. I've always liked Beakies. They're charming. You know, they're very charming as a design. Evolution of Gaming says, John Smith started in 3rd with Blood Angels, but had to buy a toy army when I got back into the game. Have both now. That's awesome. I find that a lot. There's a lot of people who basically play it whenever they're in their like teenage years and they get started in the game and then they sort of drop out for like their 20s or their late teens and then they come back in their 30s, you know, whenever they've got like a family and stuff and they're like, I need some sort of escape from this domestic hell. Someone in their 30s. I understand that. And it's kind of funny because I wonder sometimes how Games Workshop figure that into their business practices. I suspect that they know that that's the case. Like they know that there's this lifetime of a Games Workshop sort of customer, and so therefore I think that's why there was the huge price rise during the pandemic. Whenever loads of people came into the hobby, You'd think any rational company would be like, okay, we've just become super mainstream, guys. What are we gonna do? Let's get more people into this. Let's pump out the content. Let's keep the game as accessible as possible. Let's get as many people in as possible and ride this new publicity and create this new era of Warhammer players. But instead, what they did was, hey, check out these suckers. Check this out. Look what I can do. And bam, the price goes up. And why would you do that? Why wouldn't you want this fertile ground for all these new players to play? Well, I suspect is that Games Workshop have this idea of what the life path of a Games Workshop customer is, and they figure that this is like a one-time deal, that these people are going to play the game for the pandemic and then leave again in a year or two. So why not just grip them for all they're worth, squeeze them for all they're worth? And I think that's a real pity, because I don't think that's the case. I think that actually we're seeing a lot more people get back into the games and stay with the games. And I think if the game was more accessible and less expensive, people would stick around a lot more. That's why I'm really liking the look of games like one-page rules that are designed so that people can continue to play them very cheaply. Will Smith, thank you so much for $20. Wow, that's really kind of you. That's really kind of you. Do you have hobbies that extend outside of wargaming? The wife and I recently took up beekeeping, because the couple who get stung together stay together. That is very cute. Wow. Okay. So I don't have any hobbies as cool as beekeeping. Definitely not. I have this. This eats up a lot of time. But aside from YouTube, obviously there's minis. I don't really get to actually paint or anything as much as I'd like to, but I'm hoping that I've freed up a little bit of time. I'll be able to get some more hobbying done. But aside from that, I used to play video games. I don't really play them as much anymore. I used to really love video games, but I just don't do that anymore. I'm trying to think of anything else. I kind of have a little bit of a boring life now. Ever since I started the YouTube thing, I haven't really had time for anything else. I used to play a lot of TTRPGs. Used to play like D&D and World of Darkness and Call of Cthulhu. Used to play a lot of those. I love role-playing. Not necessarily in the bedroom, but I love role-playing for like games and stuff. I really enjoy that. And actually, I have signed up with a group who will be streaming their, I think it's a game of, I don't know if I can announce the system or anything like that, so I don't know if I can say anything, but I will be in a game soon that is streamed this year at some stage, and I'm really looking forward to that because I'm playing a very fun character who should be very interesting to play, and it is, I'll say this much, it's probably pretty Warhammer adjacent, but it's a role play thing, and that should be a lot of fun, so I look forward to announcing that. So that was really one of my big hobbies. I used to do that like it used to be 2 times a week, and now all I do is edit. And not anymore. I'm getting an editor because I can't handle it. It's too much. I don't enjoy editing. Malice Silphus sends £4.50. Thank you so much for the donation with the cutest little emoji. It's like a little fox saying number 1. Thank you. That is so lovely. Lazy Mini Painting says, afternoon discourse. I love the name. Lazy Mini Painting is what I am all about here on Discourse Miniatures. I am all about the lazy mini painting. If you get it done, it's done. It's why I love contrast paints. It's why I will unironically praise Games Workshop for contrast paints. I know, sue me. I mostly paint in contrast paints. I had an entire army of Dark Eldar for the longest time that were simply primed and were not painted. And then contrast paints came out and I got those painted like that. It was like nothing. I love the contrast paints so much. I got them painted. My Dark Eldar army are painted in, they are kind of the greenish tone contrast, so it's not a Kellyan green. It's the other one. It's Pterodon turquoise, because Pterodon turquoise is green shaded and a Kellyan green is blue shaded, because this makes sense. Because Games Workshop naming conventions for their paints are normal. I was talking about this to the patrons the other day. Like, it's absolutely mental. I've had to relearn paint names like 3 different times. And where's my bulk? Can I just take a moment to say, where is bulk gunmetal? Where has it gone? They say that dark iron is the new bulk gunmetal, but it's not. It doesn't look the same. It's not the same shade. And where's Midnight Blue? Anyone else remember Midnight Blue? It was my favorite color. Okay. Foodmark says, nostalgia is a terrible drug. This is why I don't look fondly in the past, because I don't idealize it. Well, yeah, nostalgia is very marketable, and you see that all the time in everything, from like movies to games, like everything. And I'll be honest, I got into WoW Classic for a while when that came out. And, oh yeah, I was drinking deep on the nostalgia for that one. It was really fun. Siphon Nalu says, well, people are leaving the game. Yeah, people are leaving the game. They are 100%, and that sucks, sucks because they leave the game and they leave wargaming altogether. They don't try other games, and that's really sad. I think that one-page rules is a really good pathway from Warhammer into other games. That's like the wee secret. I think it's like a gateway drug. It gets you like into one-page rules. You're like, wow, okay, there's other game systems here, and it's actually kind of fun. What else can I play? What else can I play? Then before you know it, you're playing Blue Book Osprey games. You're playing Napoleonics. You've got a tricorn hat on. You're running around killing ghosts and ghouls. And that, oh yeah, now we got you. Now you're in wargaming. One page rules is love. One page rules is life. I think it's great. Yeah. It's really accessible. It's great. Let's see. Lizzie Mini Painting says, Games Workshop are out of touch with the community. They have been for a while now. Yeah, definitely. I think they have too. I think so there was a while there where they were sort of back in touch. They were playing, they were doing all sorts of community stuff, and that was really good. But then they just, I don't know, they just kind of lost it. They always have these little boom and bust cycles. And the last time, I mean, in the early 2010s, they almost went completely bust. So it's not impossible. They're riding a bit of a high now, but it's kind of like it's very short term, I think. John Smith says he still has a soft spot in his heart for the little ratties. I love those guys. Yes. I don't know if you're talking about Skaven or Ratlings, but I love both. So there we are. Alan Johnson says their strategy seems to be 100% churn and burn them. They don't expect players to keep playing for long, so they need to keep releasing those big boxes to get people to maximize their buy-in 100%, and it sucks. It really does suck. I wish they would just be content with making a fun game that people enjoy playing, and they want to continue to buy models to build up their armies. I mean, they're not even selling a skirmish game here. They're selling an army game. That is a license to print money, and Wargaming does. It really does. There is much less people playing miniature war games, but there's a lot more money in miniature war games. So compared to like D&D, for example, because with D&D, there's not a lot of buy-in there. It's super accessible, so lots more people play it. G donates £5. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm busy in studying, but I thought I'd drop by to show support. Thank you. That's really appreciated. Thank you, and good luck with the studies. I am so glad I don't have to study for stuff anymore. I hated studying at school. I absolutely hated it. So good luck though. Guillermo GL says, hello from Paraguay. Love your sketches. Chaos cultists always make me crack. Yes, I'm so glad you enjoy those. So the sketches are obviously a little bit of a sort of controversial topic. I haven't done as many of them as I should do. I should be getting more of those done. Lizzie Lai says, ha 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 ha, I'm too young to have nostalgia. Yes, well, you'll get it. You'll feel the full brunt of it in a couple of years, though. You'll see. You'll be like, oh, my teenage years. When I was at my peak, when I peaked. Gene Separo says, full Battletech has way too much bookkeeping for many people, especially non-war gamers. Yeah, I can see that. So I don't really know much about Battletech, so I'm kind of talking out my behind here. But Battletech has always looked a little bit like, wow, okay, there's hexagons on this one. Okay, I think for a lot of new people, it may be a little bit intimidating. On the other hand, they got that kind of board gaming aspect, which kind of gets people in as well. So it could go either way. I could see either way working out. Because Vex says streaming on green screen is like playing with unpainted minis. That is how I roll. I am all about the unpainted minis. Although that's not true. So I had to end up instituting a rule for myself, which was I am not allowed to play with a miniature anymore unless it is painted. And let me tell you, I paint a lot more these days. I paint a lot more. For the longest time, I was just playing with grey. I just will not. I forbid it now. I just had to do this. Otherwise, I just wasn't painting miniatures. The channel's helped as well. So I don't like showing off minis on the channel without having them painted. So yeah. Streaming on Evolution of Gaming says the sad part is and then I've lost my spot. I don't know how the hell this works. really useless. The Solo Wargamer says I run a local store and I'm finding more and more people are getting into Games Workshop. Just 40k. No one plays Age of Sigmar. That's kind of so. Age of Sigmar for the longest time was like is it popular? Is it not? In my local area, I knew people who were playing Age of Sigmar, and they'd gotten into Age of Sigmar. They were people who had played 40k like 10 years ago, and then they got into Age of Sigmar. So I was always of the impression that Age of Sigmar was doing okay. But then lately, it seems like the game has definitely started to bleed a lot of players. And I don't know how much that is to do with the sort of core game being kind of a little bit rough these days in terms of just balance and things like that. Because I don't actually know. So this is something that I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I don't know kind of to what extent balance really matters to the average person. I think that the perception of balance is a really important thing. So I think that if you're playing a game and it feels reasonably balanced, I think that's good. I think if you play a game and it doesn't feel reasonably balanced at all and it totally sucks, then you're not going to have fun. But at the high levels, I'm thinking here, like at the sort of the very, very top, when it's Harlequin versus Harlequin, for example, and that's all you can see, does that really ruin the game for other people? If you don't have a Harlequin player in your local area, is it really bad then? And I think so. I think actually the perception of balance is really important. I think if people perceive the game to be imbalanced, they don't really want to play it as much. They don't really see the sort of value in playing it. Whereas if it's seen as a competitive experience, I think that they do actually enjoy it a little bit more. But that's just me sort of thinking aloud. Some Digilist says, ultimately, I think Games Workshop management believes that miniature wargaming is a dying industry, and their best bet is to milk the player base as much as they can while they try to diversify into another marvel. Yes and no. So I'm sort of sympathetic to some of that idea. Some of the idea that basically that they want to get into a kind of position where they're a digital company. The thing about Games Workshop is that they have always prioritized the IP, and if you guys thought that my latest video was spicy, if you thought that my opinion on squats was spicy, wait until you hear about my opinion on the IP and what should be done with it in Games Workshop. My next video is going to be on that, and it's currently being edited right now, and I think I'm going to get a lot of hate for this. That's some real radical stuff I'm going to be coming out with. But Games Workshop have always really valued the IP, and definitely, if they could be a digital marketing company, they would be. If they could just sell Games Workshop stuff, like Warhammer and things like that, they would. But I think primarily they are a miniature company, and I think they will be for a really long time. And I think they know that as well, because the margins on the miniatures are just so crazy good. Like, they dominate the miniature wargaming market, and so if they could make loads and loads of money there, why wouldn't they? These things aren't exclusive. They can do both. They can sell minis, and they can also sell the rights to those, like to that IP in books, in movies and things like that, and in video games. This isn't exclusive. So I think they'd prefer to just do everything, because if they can make more money, why wouldn't they? Wargamer Lena says, GW is managed by angry nerds who know more trivia than you. Yes, this is... Okay, that's probably fair. Kudos to Hanker says, LaSalle, the second edition is the best Napoleonic war game. I changed my mind. I actually don't know much about Napoleonics. The only real Napoleonic game that I've honestly played is Silver Bayonet. See, I like a little bit of spicy fantasy in my historical games, so I don't play too many historicals. I really want to play bolt action. I still haven't gotten a game of that in, even though I've made loads of miniatures and I've assembled them and I've got lots of terrain. I really have everything prepared to play bolt action, but I haven't gotten around to playing it yet, so that's pretty sad. Sorry, excuse the loud noise there. I'm opening a can of Fanta, or sherry, as I called it in the Freezer merch review. Patrick says, the lack of a points value system for Age of Sigmar in the beginning really hurt it. Yeah, Age of Sigmar got a really unfair reputation, I think, because it just came out and it was really wacky. It was like, oh, if you got a mustache, then you get more points. I can't grow a mustache, Games Workshop, so I guess I just lose points. And I get what they were trying to do. They were trying to be very, very cute. They were trying to sort of be like, hoo-hoo, isn't this wacky? This isn't like Warhammer Fantasy at all. This is super casual. It's for everybody. It's for like 10-year-olds. It's for 30-year-olds. It's for everybody. And I think they misjudged that a little bit. I think they misjudged that, because the people who are getting into war games are people, a lot of them are very serious people. And I don't think that 100% that war games should be serious, but I think that I just don't think people were looking for that kind of experience from a war game. I think that's something that people don't mind in like role-playing games or board games, but I don't think they want that in a war game. There's so much investment needed in a war game. It just generally has a less casual audience. Now, I think that there can totally be a super casual audience for war games. That's why I definitely propose that there should be more solo, more co-op games. I think if you want to get a more casual audience, I think that's what you do. I don't think you make really weird rules in a competitive game. I don't think that's the case. Because any 1v1 game is going to be kind of competitive. It's really hard to turn that off for a lot of people. Christopher, with a $5 donation, thank you so much. That's really kind of you. Games Workshop games need more interactivity to make the imbalances more entertaining to play. I think that is a very astute point. They do. They need more interactivity. It's one of my main complaints with Games Workshop, with Games Workshop products generally, let's be honest, is that interactivity is a really big problem. Now, Games Workshop know this. They're not dumb. They do understand that this is a problem with the game. So they brought in stratagems to try and resolve that. During your turn, you can do things to prevent your opponent from killing you using stratagems. But the way they implemented it was the most ham-fisted way ever. Now you've got this huge list of special abilities, and they do very specific things. If they wanted you to be able to take actions during your turn, they should have made them like a generalized 4 stratagems, and those were the things you could do. I don't think that they should have made so many, and I agree. I think that they need more interactivity to be fun, and I think honestly, the easiest win here, the easiest win for this is to make it an alternating activation game. I would love to see 10th edition be alternating activation. Because I think it's just the easiest win. It's just the easiest way to do it. Evolution of Gaming says, I enjoy your content too much to not watch you for disagreeing, but some people can't look to be civil. Oh yeah, I totally get that. Well, thank you for checking out the channel. Look, I said it earlier. I try to make all the content entertaining as much as I can. I want people to actually enjoy the content, and then maybe hopefully take some of the some of the stuff I'm saying to heart a little bit. But yeah, that's awesome. Rotherick, thank you so much for the €10 donation. That's really kind of you. Thank you. That's lovely. Everyone's been so generous today. It's really nice. Sorry, late to the party, sick in bed. Well, very sorry to hear that. I hope you're feeling better soon. Being an anecdote, Andy, ever since 3rd edition Age of Sigmar isn't selling here, Vienna, ooh, lovely city, anymore. Dominion's still available, heavily discounted. This never happened in Age of Sigmar 2. Wow, yeah, how about that Dominion box set, huh, guys? Like, whoa, what's going on there? They can't give that box away. I know so many stores here who are just sitting on boxes and boxes of Dominion, and I've seen pictures and screenshots of store places with just loads and loads and loads of Dominion. Games Workshop really overestimated their production of that game, like how well that would sell. And to some extent, look, okay, fair due to Games Workshop, there was complaints all the time about them not producing enough stock. I don't know whether or not they just went all out and making sure that everybody could get stock, but somehow I doubt it. I think that they overestimated the demand for that game. I think they overestimated it in a really bad way. And if you watch Goobertown Hobbies, he does a really good video on unboxings, and he talks about how Games Workshop have not been leveraging content creators well enough. And it's very funny that came before, if I'm correct in the timeline here, that came before the NDA leak. So Games Workshop have had a really rough time with content creators. I'm hoping they can turn that around, because to be honest, I'm just surprised, really, more than anything, because everybody else seems to know this. The content creators are like massive advertisements for the game. It seems like all of Games Workshop's advertising for the game is taking place on Twitter, which is just really weird, because Twitter's got like 2,000 people in it, and that's it. It's a very small community there. So it's just very strange to me. George, oh no, I've lost you, George. I'm so sorry. let's scroll back up a little bit. Let's see. Dan Brooks says, those that largely left Age of Sigmar migrated the Warhammer Army project, as it fulfilled a lot of what the older Warhammer Fantasy Battle used to. Yeah, so Warhammer Fantasy, one of the things I really loved about it was that it had a sort of world that you could exist with, like you could imagine, right? Give you just an idea here. I had an Empire army, and my Empire army were based on in the Stirland border. That's where they were based. They were a mercenary company that were designed to fight vampire count armies. They were there to help police the border against goblins and ghouls and ghosts and sort of vampires and undead skeletons. And they were hired by the Count of Stirland to guard that realm of the border, and they occasionally went in. So that meant that I built them to be very gunpowder heavy. They didn't want to get into melee because of all the morale shocks from the undead. They had a white wizard there who was on their payroll because, he was needed to like get rid of all the corruption and things like that. And I had a general. I had like a general of the Empire, and I had generic units. And I had given him a magic sword that I based on the background where he had found this thing. And that was really cool. It felt like an army that was located in a specific time and place, and that I had built them that way. I don't get the same sort of feeling from Age of Sigmar. I have read through the entire rulebook of Age of Sigmar, so I kind of get an idea for the setting, but I don't find anywhere where I'm like, okay, this is a really cool part of the world. I'm gonna build an army that specifically kind of exists in this area. I just don't get that same feeling. It feels like a sort of a world where anything could happen, so that basically anybody can play anything, and that's kind of fine. But really, that's Warhammer 40k. Or at least the way it used to be. Warhammer 40k used to be very much design your own dudes. It's why I don't really have a lot of sympathy for this idea that Warhammer really requires an alternative society to show that the Imperium is wrong. Like, I kind of get where that comes from, but for example, my Imperial Guard army were not an Imperial Guard army. They were an independent planet. That was the fluff on my planet. They were an independent planet who had accidentally found an STC that had the lasgun and the Lehman Russ template on them, and then they therefore used it was basically a nation state that found these things and then conquered the entire world using lasguns because they were so overpowered in my mid 20th century world. And now they were like this small galactic empire, like very, very small galactic empire. And then they unearthed Necrons, and that was like the setting for my little army, and that meant they could fight anybody. They could fight the Imperium, and they weren't like the big dogs. And so that was my setting. That was my army, and that meant that my army were an alternative way to doing things from the Imperium way. Because the way that Warhammer used to be sold was that the galaxy is massive, it's huge, you could do anything there. But now it seems like everything, absolutely everything of note must take place in Guilliman's living room. That everything has to be with the same like 6 characters. And I don't know, I kind of prefer it whenever things were just happening everywhere and you could kind of make up your own stuff. But it's, I mean, a lot of people have gotten into the game because of the new lore. You know, you've got like the Horse Heresy books definitely pull a lot of people in. And they get into the lore and then they get into the games. So that's good. It's just kind of funny to me, a lot of the people who criticize the pricing structure of Games Workshop all the time, and I think a lot of people who criticize me for that are basically saying are people who don't play the game, are people who paint the models maybe, or just enjoy the books and the lore. And they say I see people say things like, I enjoy the books, I enjoy the lore, but I mean, I can't afford to buy the game, but that's fine, I just don't buy it. And I'm like, dude, that's not good. Like, Games Workshop should be pricing things so that people who get into the lore can easily get into the game, so that more people play the game and the entire franchise gets bigger. Like, this is 101 here. But I don't know, I guess that's just me. Wade A. Parker says, I wonder how long Games Workshop had the squat models around. They were probably waiting for the drop in interest to drop in the community to draw people back in. No, I think they planned it for April Fools. I think that it was a plan for April Fools. I think they wanted to do a cute little joke. My problem with that was that I think it kind of overshadowed the reveal a little bit. It just felt a little bit weird to kind of do it that way, but okay, I mean, I'm not in marketing, so. Roy Carroll says, Age of Sigmar actually does interactivity better than 40k by a lot. I would agree with that. I think that Age of Sigmar is a better game, kind of, than 40k. I think it has specific problems to it right now, to the meta, to like ranged weapons. I think they need to get a grip on ranged weapons. I think they need to figure out how they want range to exist. I don't think it's a train problem. I think it's a game problem. But I think that overall, I think that Age of Sigmar is probably a superior game in gameplay. I don't like the setting as much, but I think that the game is probably a superior game. I think that's why you see a lot of the bigger, there's a surprising amount of competitive players for Age of Sigmar. Oh my goodness, what have I done? Sorry, I'm idly sort of fiddling about with the microphone. I should probably not touch it at all. I can't help myself. I'm always fiddling with stuff. Gabriel says, I think the 10K 10th edition will have stratagems and the reaction system Horse Heresy is getting. Yeah, so I don't know too much about Horse Heresy. I think a reaction system would be pretty good. I think that's probably a good compromise because I don't think we're ever going to see alternating activations, really. I just don't think we're gonna see it at all. Because they've never wanted any big innovations to happen to the game. Not really. Rudy says you were right. I'm going to presume that's about me and that I was right about everything. So thank you very much, Rudy. Thank you for that. I'm going to take that. Zimzam says Warlord has the best activations. The more units you have, the more activations you have, the crappier actions you do. I agree. I really like it. Okay, let's see here. So it's getting up to 5 to 6. Wow. So it's been, I think, 2 hours. 2 hours now, right? I've been having a real blast, guys. I've been having a lot of fun. I don't know. I mean, I didn't really sort of have like a time to log off on. To be honest, I was like, I'm just going to see what happens because I have no idea. So I'm just kind of, I'm happy to keep going, to be honest. I guess until my voice goes out. Yes, George F says, rip Midnight Blue. I 100% agree. Where is Midnight Blue? Come on, where is Midnight Blue? I love that thing. My entire Imperial Guard, their chess piece was built on Midnight Blue, and it's just gone now. It's so sad. Okay, sorry, I cannot read the lettering there, but it's D or Oraju. I am so sorry, I'm really bad at pronouncing names. Says, the first live I managed to catch. That's great, because this is the first live I've managed to do. Apart from, I do Patreon live streams now. I've started doing some exclusive Patreon live streams, which is, it's kind of a lot smaller. It's a lot more intimate. So that's been a lot of fun as well. But obviously those are exclusive for patrons. Let's see here. Steven Stewart says, who I like. Lizzie Minnick, Fanta 2 sponsor. Yes, that's right. Do I have to cover this or anything? Am I not allowed? Fanta endorse all I say about Games Workshop. There we go. I'm sure that won't get any letters sent to me at any time. Sponsored by Raytheon. Shadow Ops Nate says, one big bonus for Age of Sigmar over 40k is that armies are typically about half the price. Got it in one. Got it in one. Games Workshop really do rely on their IP, don't they? I mean, they really rely on their IP. I am always shocked whenever I see games that are coming out and I'm like, "Ooh, they're kind of pricey." And then then I remember the prices of Games Workshop games and I'm like, "Ooh." And the thing, okay, let's talk about this for a second. One of the things about Games Workshop they present themselves as a bespoke product, right? They present themselves as if they're this very bespoke, like, "Oh, we're very classy, like we're a very premium product." But I want to show you something, okay? So this is a box of Primaris Intercessors. I think they might be a little bit shiny, but this is a box of Primaris Intercessors, okay? Believe me. And this is a box. This is just a normal box. That's fine. I mean, to me, this doesn't seem that premium. It's kind of fine. It's like a box. However, Blacksite Studios, they are a more expensive model company, but they're a very small company, and they do a lot of manufacturing in-house and things like that. They also present themselves as a bespoke product maker, and they sell their things in this. This is an expansion pack for Lunar. This is the Chinese, I believe, CCCP? No, this is like, I don't know what this is. A minute icons. These are like the hero characters. And they're in this packaging that is sort of like a sort of space food packaging for NASA, that, you know, for astronaut food, because it's for an astronaut game. This is how you do bespoke premium packaging. That's so awesome. This is so cool. Like, I love this. It's just, I don't want to open this because it just feels so neat to hold in my hand. It's themed. It's themed packaging. Imagine if all the Space Marines were sent to you in a Land Raider or something. That'd be cool. Another game that Blacksite Studios do is called Don't Look Back, and that's like a horror game where this slasher flick, and he's trying to get you, this slasher monster trying to get you, and they sell all of their products for that in VHS tapes. So you buy it, you get it in a VHS tape, you open it up, and the miniatures and the rule book and stuff's inside there. That's really cool. I really love that stuff. It feels very premium. Rothrick says the art of Age of Sigmar is basically Rococo. Everything is insanely over the top. Yeah, that's actually super true. And total A star on the use of Rococo. Definitely Rothrick. The setting is so massive they can do any weird shit. The minis work best when they lean into that. Recent releases did not. Yeah, so one of my problems with Age of Sigmar is that they really seem like they want to be this kind of like heavy metal universe where it's just everything is gleaming silver. You're riding on a dinosaur and you're flying through the sky. And I don't know. I don't think they pull it off 100%. I kind of see, I really like that, but I like it on an aesthetic level. I don't know if it makes for the best world building. I think you can do like a comic strip in that, but I'm not sure if you can build sort of like a coherent universe that's meant to be taken seriously. I think it has to be kind of a little bit on the nose and silly, and Age of Sigmar kind of feels like it wants to be taken very, very seriously, and I'm not sure if it could. Not with the heavy metal aesthetic, you know? I think it can tell definitely compelling stories in that setting, but I'm not sure if I could take it as like a coherent universe. You know, am I going to really play Dave of Earth, the miniatures game? Yeah, actually, that sounds pretty badass. But I'm not going to play it and be like, okay, I got to keep up with the new books because I got to see what the storyline is for, you know, for how my new army is going to do. Like, they should just take the, you know, be silly with it. I think there's a Lunar game I saw that's all meant to be like kind of evoke that kind of Flash Gordon sort of miniatures game. And that looks really silly, but you know, the mainstream, I don't know if it's super mainstream anymore. I'm not sure if they can get away with that anymore. But thank you so much for the donation. It's very, very generous of you, Rothrick. Let's see here. Dan Brooks says, looks like the MRE food for the army in Vietnam. U.S. forces, obviously. Yes, that's yeah, 100%. I love that packaging. Love the packaging. That looks so cool. GW making their packaging into some sort of foldable cardboard terrain would be really interesting. I agree. I think that would be super interesting. Do something with the packaging. I mean, let's be honest. The current packaging is more expensive than the models inside. You know, they cost more, so you might as well do something fun with them. Let's see. Ralph says, hey guys, first time on a live stream. Just sad that it overlaps with Uncle Adam's live on Sundays. That wasn't intentional. Oh no, we're like going up against the juggernauts. It's like Channel 4 versus BBC. I didn't intend for that to be the case. I just did it because I finally got this all set up. I've been trying to get this set up for like months. I suck at this stuff. I really am a total gremlin. It's really, really tough. And I only have the one camera as well, so I can't like do anything. I can't like show off painting or anything like that. I'm hoping that when I get moved, that I can kind of have like a little area for streaming. I'd love to stream more. I think streaming is really fun, and it's a lot more interactive. I really enjoy doing the YouTube videos, and obviously that will always be my primary content. But I really enjoy sort of talking with you guys. It's a lot of fun. I've been really enjoying it. Wargaming Lena says we need Space Marine loot boxes. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. They actually passed me by because you had those Space Marine Heroes thing, which was basically Space Marine loot boxes, and I mentioned once in a game, like, what's next? Space Marine loot boxes? Like, it was some sort of joke. And they had done it, and I was like, oh no. Oh my goodness, no. Oh god. I was taken totally aback. I mean, I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was. I never heard about Space Marine Heroes. It just completely passed me by, and I'm so sad that it existed. Clem Fandango says, I think 8th edition Apocalypse was GW trialing some sort of alternating activation in non-skirmish games, and that kind of flopped. Probably will not see it revisited in mainstream 40k in future edition. Maybe so. Maybe that's the case. Tyler Johnson donated $1. Thank you so much. That is so kind of you. That's really lovely. Thank you so much. Mad Penguin says Infinity has done that already. You get a cardboard cover for the miniature box that turns it into a small building. That is really cool. Yes. Infinity. The only thing I have bought from Infinity is the. Oh god, they did like a skirmish box set recently this year where it was 2 different factions. I can't remember their name because they have a very specific name, but it's like the kind of European style ones that are more traditional soldiery. They got like the werewolf guys versus the more sort of the nomads, I think they're called, versus those guys. So that was kind of interesting. There was lots of little cardboard boxes. I quite like the cardboard boxes. Or the cardboard sort of like terrain, you know, like little buildings and stuff. My Penguin says, yes, that's right. Dalem says, love you, Discourse, platonically. Thank you, that's really nice. Malcolm Photo says, post models. I have a bunch of them. I actually have an Instagram that I don't really update very often. I actually have a TikTok as well, would you imagine? I post up a lot of skits and stuff there. But for Instagram, I actually, I do post up miniatures every so often. I think you're going to see a lot more because now I'm not stuck editing all day every day. I'm going to try and get more painting. I actually painted some Batman mini stuff recently. I got some Joker stuff painted. That was really fun. Been painting some Mythic Americas, as I said before. I haven't been painting any Warhammer stuff. I've been painting some Fallout stuff as well for the co-op game. Flash Gordon's rad. Flash Gordon is rad. Shadow Op says, what point are we getting GW NFTs? Ooh, I think that actually we're on the other side of NFTs now. I don't really see them being mentioned anymore. I think that the, should we just say current events has sort of taken the wind out of NFTs a little bit. NFTs were sort of existing by the fact that they were being pushed a lot by a lot of bots, I think. And the moment that something more interesting happened, they sort of disappeared. So I don't know. I think once like Russia was cut off from the internet, a lot of them seem to disappear as well. So I don't know if we're going to see NFTs now. I work in places that, shall we say, would adopt NFTs if they were really, really, really big. And they were beginning to talk about NFTs, but now all that talk has stopped. So I don't think NFTs are coming this year. I'll say that much. I think we're kind of on the other side of those. James Sarapu says, Lartbeard, good point, that model kit, although I usually think about the one eating. Sorry, I missed the context of this one, but okay. Dyslexic Dragon said, you also have the Chibi 40k loot boxes. Chibi Space Marines, oh goodness. Lee Shepard says, Space Marine Heroes. Yep, it was a loot box. It was absolutely awful. GM Sarapo says, the Ariadna versus Nomad box was nice. I have it. I stopped working on my Tartary Force recently due to reasons. Yes, it was the Ariadna. Ariadna is the faction that I decided I would play in Infinity, and I played a little bit. Of them. Weird A Parker says GW did no 1 or 2 cardboard box buildings, but I can't remember what set they were part of. Whoa, we're sort of. Steven Stewart says, my favorite Trader Legion. This is sort of tough because, okay, so here's my experience with Chaos, okay? Here's my experience with Chaos. I am like 12 years old or maybe even a little bit younger. I have picked up the Dawn of War 1 box. I have gotten on the bus. I'm going home to play my video game in my PC. And I have opened the box and I'm now looking at the manual and I see the factions. I see Space Marines and I think, wow, okay, who are the Space Marines? Kind of a lame name, but okay, let's see. And I open it up and I read about the Space Marines. I hear about how they're working for this massive empire. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I see who's next. The Chaos Space Marines. I go, Oh no. Is this like a mirror match thing going on? Why the hell am I playing like a speckier version of the good guys? What's going on here? So that was my first impression of Chaos, and I'm afraid to say that it never quite changed until relatively recently. I had a friend who played Chaos, and they were really big fans of Chaos, but they were never able to quite sell me on it. My problem is that I'm not a huge fan of the Chaos Space Marine side, so my opinion on Traitor Legions is kind of tough. I would have to say Emperor's Children, just because I'm a big fan of Slaanesh. So I would have to say Emperor's Children, but I'm not 100% on that. So I mean, as far as I know, I think Emperor's Children are like the big Slaanesh ones, but I could be showing my what's the chapter that is basically robots? What's the chapter that has like their souls trapped inside their suits? I love those guys. I love those guys. Those guys are really cool. My favorite part of Chaos are the rebellions. My favorite part of Chaos is Chaos rather than the Chaos Space Marine side of things. I really like the demons and the rebellions, the humans, the mortals, the renegades who end up signing up with Chaos because it's the only way out of them. I did that video about how Chaos are really cool in Necromunda and how you yourself would join Chaos, because I think that Chaos gets perceived to be this existential threat that is just really dumb. Like, why would anybody ever join this? And it's kind of trying to put across the point that the Imperium creates chaos. It creates armies of chaos because of its systems are so awful that it's the only way to try and escape. Because the world that the writers of Games Workshop have constructed is a world where the only way to get out of the current awful autocracy, out of the current systems that you live within, are to find some other big player. And the only other one really in town is like Gene Stealer cults or chaos. So I think that aspect of them is really cool. Iron Warriors. Thousand Sons. So there's two of them. I thought it was Iron Warriors, honestly. Thousand Sons I always think of like sort of Egyptian dudes. Space Marines, fascists of the Empire. Yes, 100%. 100% they are. They should be. Akatosh, yep. Yugo is at the core of Warhammer 40k and to a certain extent of AOS. If they change that, they change the core mechanic of the game, like killing your cash cow, because they will lose most players. And that is exactly why they've never changed it, because I think the Games Workshop are really, really, really frightened of losing the core player base of Warhammer 40k. For the longest time, I think there was talks of actually trying to change it a little bit from Rick Priestley at the time. He wanted to change the game a little bit. I think one of the changes he wanted to make was making an alternating activation. He wanted to sort of innovate on the core gameplay. And Games Workshop were like, no. That is not happening anytime soon. So Rick Priestley left, and he went on to create Bolt Action and Gates of Antares and things like that, which have a really interesting, innovative system. And Games Workshop reasoning was, we don't want to alienate any of the current players. And I kind of get that, right? People who play Warhammer want to play Warhammer. Well, okay, maybe they don't, right? Because Warhammer sort of pulls in a lot of people who start playing it because they get invested in the game. They buy like £1,000 worth of models. They play like $2,000 worth of models and like, ha, I've got all of the Space Marines. And then they go and they play their first game and they go, oh my God, I don't like this game at all. This wasn't fun. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating in the amount of money they spend, but people get really invested in the game and then they play. Uh-oh, that's bad. And then they drop out of the game entirely. They go, I hate Wargaming, I hate Warhammer, I am never playing this again. However, maybe they would enjoy a different game. There's lots of people who just think, I don't enjoy Warhammer. I don't know why I don't enjoy Warhammer, but I don't really like the gameplay, so I'm just going to paint. And that's cool. It's just that I feel like if they played like a different game, they might actually enjoy a different game. And it's why miniature agnostic games are really cool, because it means that you can take all that investment that you took, all that sunk cost that you have, and you can play a different game with them. And you can go, hey, actually, I do like gaming. I think a lot more people enjoy gaming than they think. But yeah, I understand you don't want to alienate existing players. It's why something like one-page rules is kind of important, because it allows you to sort of play with alternating rules. There is a game called War Surge, and in War Surge, you can create anything. You create your own factions, you create your own units. And what you can do in that game is there's two different versions of that game, all in the one rulebook. There is the basic version and the advanced version. The basic version is you go, I go. The advanced version is alternating activations. I would honestly be interested in something like that from Warhammer 40k. If they were to introduce some sort of basic version of the game that is the you go, I go, although I don't think you could call it that, because people who enjoy you go, I go, I think would get offended that it was known as the basic version. But I think some sort of version of it which was you go, I go, and then another version which was alternating activations that was kind of conceived of as the more competitive version of the game, I think would be okay. But then again, I think if I were to reshape Warhammer, if I were to take the gameplay of Warhammer, I think I'd turn it into a solo/co-op game. Ho 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 ho. At least at its core. I think co-op or competitive would be sort of a side hustle. I think that a co-op game would suit Warhammer more, honestly, because I think that's what people want from the game. I think people mostly want to play with their miniatures that they've created. There's a huge component of competitive players, but I think that there is the majority of people just want to play with the models. So I think that should really be just the focus of them. Because for the longest time, I think the co-op, for some reason in wargaming, is like conceived as this kind of like weird sort of thing. Like, what co-op war games? But Dungeons and Dragons was a co-op war game, right? It just ended up getting a lot more into the sort of accent part rather than the actual game on the page part. I feel like Fallout, for example, Wasteland Warfare, it has a really cool co-op mode. I've been really enjoying co-op. So I think that a lot of people would actually play a co-op version of Warhammer. Because even, you gotta remember, if you're someone who plays competitively at Warhammer and you've been playing Warhammer for ages, for a new player, for a sort of casual player, playing against someone is really intimidating. It's really, really intimidating. People don't really want to play against one another because they could lose. And nobody enjoys losing. And you're kind of playing, like, and then the person who wins might be a little bit gloaty, even if they don't mean to be. And it's kind of awkward, and you're playing against a stranger, and it's not fun. I think that people would prefer to walk into a store and play against, like, an AI where they can both work together. And you see this in, like, RTS games. I always remember, like, comp stomps were, like, way bigger than the competitive side. The vast majority of casual players just wanted to play skirmish games against the AI. They don't want to play against other people because it's super intimidating. And like you can win and lose and stuff, and it's really hard and it's just really scary. And I think it's the same thing for war games. Let me just scroll down a little bit. Shimps, Hassathor says shimps. I don't know what that means. Oh my goodness. Vermintide tabletop. That would be awesome. I would love Vermintide tabletop. That would be so cool. Tommy says, Warhammer community just put out the next week pre-order post and it has a new Tyranid sculpt. Checkmate, Discourse. Okay, well, I knew there was a new sculpt I knew for the new Codex. Is that new on top of the new Codex one? That's not a new one, right? Because if they're putting out a sculpt that's not included in the new Codex, that's kind of problematic. Is that the case? That can't be the case, right? Dungeon crawlers are a better entry to minigames than skirmish or full war games. I think people are more geared towards co-op games when there's a knowledge disparity. I 100% agree with you, James Serapio. I totally agree with you. I think that is totally the case. And I think the co-op and competitive can coexist, as Alpha Wolf says. I think that's the case. And One Page Rules actually does have cooperative gaming, yeah, but it's not as much of a focus, I would say. And I never actually got around to playing the solo. I think I played one game of the solo game, but I never really played much of it. So I never really mentioned it too much in my review because I wanted to talk about the gameplay that was free. I ended up joining the Patreon, so I had access to a lot more stuff than what if you just played it for free. And I didn't want to review that stuff because I wanted to present it as a free game. And I wasn't going to start reviewing the stuff that you needed to get in the Patreon because I was presenting it as a free game, right? So I wanted to just review the free bit. And maybe at a later stage, I'll go over the stuff that you get from the patrons. But it's kind of hard to do now because I've obviously had a video that's been sponsored by One Page Rules, so I don't know whether or not I should actually go back to it as a review project because I kind of feel like my judgment is probably colored by that. Although then again, always your judgment is always colored by it. You know, you're always gonna have biases and stuff like that. And if you're upfront about it, I don't know. I have to think about it. This is the sort of stuff that I think about a lot, actually. I'm like, what is ethical? Okay. Oh my god, Discourse. Thanks to you, I learned about the end times. I'm so sorry, Augusto. I'm so sorry you had to learn about that. That is a very sad moment in anyone's life. My voice is going very hoarse. I think I'm going to have to end this soon, guys, because my voice is running out. I'm actually not going to be able to... Luckily, I have recorded the next video already, so I don't need to record anything soon, so I can go a little bit longer. Blood Bowl, it is all people need, 100%. Oh, I don't know, Blood Bowl. Blood Bowl has that push your luck mechanic the Games Workshop really used to love. I mean, they still kind of love it, but they've kind of worked on adding rerolls to everything that sort of mitigates a lot of the sort of chance and stuff in gameplay and sort of the odds. Look, Blood Bowl to me is like an actually competitive talisman game. Except every single rule that you're rolling is like the frog rule, whether or not you're going to get turned into a frog or not. And you will lose everything if you roll that wrong. And I'm really bad at it. I'm really, really bad at Blood Bowl. I'm really bad at risk analysis. So I find it hard to sort of identify the things that will get me screwed over or not. And for those who haven't played Blood Bowl, basically when you roll a fail, your turn passes, your turn ends, and it goes over to the next person. So if you're playing against somebody and you roll and you fail your roll, your guy falls over, bam, it's on to the next opponent. If you succeed, then you get to make another action. You can just keep going that way. So the game really is all about trying to identify what things you should do in what order. What is the least likely to fail down the way to what is the most likely to fail. And you leave the most likely to fail things to last. I'm really bad at that. I am really, really bad at that. I can't do that very well. I just start going, okay, I'm going to do this. And then I fail and I go, oh no, I totally screwed up. Because I'm bad at the game. I'm just really bad at it. Although I kind of love the idea of it. I'm not really like a sports person. The sort of sports I was into where it was kind of like esports. I was really into StarCraft. I really, really enjoyed StarCraft 2 more so than StarCraft 1. I was really into esports, but I've never really been into like sports. So like the kind of the theme of American football never really quite got me. Although I have played Blood Bowl, the video game, quite a bit, but just because it's the AI. It's really easy. Rotherick donates another €5. Thank you so much, Rotherick. You're very, very kind. That's so nice of you. Thank you. That's so lovely. Everyone's been so nice. I'm really surprised. But I was expecting loads of hate. I was expecting to come on and be like, oh God, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry that I didn't quite get so excited about squats. I'm so sorry for that. But everyone's been absolutely lovely. It's been really, really nice. Nimble Tech says, time for dinner. Good stream discourse. Bye, all. Bye-bye, Nimble. Bye-bye. Fassini says, I got into Warhammer by playing the co-op campaign of Dawn of War 2 with a friend, so I'm all for co-op games. Exactly. The co-op games, oh, God. The Last Stand game on that was awesome. You got to play as, like, a hero character, and you ran around fighting stuff. That was really, really cool. I think they should have leaned into that a bit more. But unfortunately, they didn't. And then Dawn of War 3 came out, and we don't talk about Dawn of War 3. But yeah, no, I think if Games Workshop were to come out with a co-op version of Warhammer, I think people would be all over that. I think people would be all over that. I think it'd be really big. I think it'd be like a shot in the arm. OPR sponsorship. If you want Games Workshop to engage more of content creators, OPR is doing just that. It's fine for you to go with that, in my opinion. Well, thank you so much, Rothrick. Thank you for that. Definitely, I'd love to make more content for one-page rules. 100%, I would. And thank you for the €5 donation as well. That's really, really nice. That's lovely. Hurricane Live says, I want Games Workshop to re-release Blackstone expansions, maybe alongside Curse City expansions. It's just money being left on the table. I agree. I never got into Blackstone Fortress when it was just coming out, but I would like to play some Blackstone Fortress. I have a friend who has some of the expansions, but sort of COVID and stuff like that, I haven't gotten around to playing it. But I would really enjoy playing some more Blackstone Fortress. And I'm surprised that they don't keep releasing expansions for that, because it really did. Like you said, it's like leaving money on the table. It feels like a license to print money. Plus, the whole Blackstone Fortress thing is kind of cool. The little bit of gameplay I played, it seemed fun. I feel like Games Workshop get to ride their name a lot. I think a lot of people put up with like worse gameplay. So for example, I think Curse City, because it has these beautiful models in it, people are very forgiving of the poor gameplay. But Curse City doesn't interest me because the gameplay apparently is really bad. I don't think the same is true of Blackstone Fortress. I've heard better things about Blackstone Fortress. Jim Ciprio says, Corvus Belli will be introducing Warcrow this year with the co-op dungeon crawl with a war game next year. Yes, I've heard about Warcrow. I'm very interested in that. I think that that's definitely something that they're going to be doing. I think it's very, very savvy of them. Scythen Nilo says, I need to get deeper into the full one-page rules rulebook. I'm a Patreon for a week approximately. Yeah, I've been a patron for them since for a month or so now, maybe 2 months. Time is but an illusion. I've completely lost track of time. Yeah, it's been good. I've been getting lots of sculpts. If you've got a 3D printer, I think it's definitely worth it, because you get lots and lots of minis. So that's been really fun. I've got so many minis. Isn't Vermintide just Mordheim, or am I wrong? Says Wargamer Lena. No, that isn't the case, Lena. Vermintide is a sort of a video game from Fat Shark where you run around fighting Skaven, and they are adorable and they must die. And it's a lot of fun. I actually quite enjoy it. Although I wish that they would be able to sort of focus on the game a little bit more. I don't know if Darktide was a great idea, but Darktide is looking really good now, so maybe it was. So yeah, but Mordheim is different. It's a different sort of setting. Well, it's in Warhammer Fantasy. They're both in Warhammer Fantasy, but Mordheim is like a specific thing. Guy Beckett says, Blood Bowl Dwarfs done. My next project will be Blood Bowl Elves. Awesome. Enjoy that. Dwarves are really cool. You just basically create a cage. As far as I'm aware, you just create a cage and you just go down. Just go down. Okay. Wow. Okay. So I think I'm really behind on the chat. Let's see here. Oh, Tyler Johnson with the $1 donation. Thank you so much, Tyler. That's really lovely of you. Thank you. Paul says, really digging the stream. Super enjoyable Sunday afternoon. That's awesome. Thank you so much. So I didn't really know what I was going to do here. I figured I would just chat away and talk about the squats and stuff like that. And then if worst comes to worst, I would just unbox Lunar or something because Lunar looks really cool. And to be honest, I have all these different boxes of skirmish games. I have literally dozens and dozens of them that I really want to play, but I haven't opened them yet because I haven't had the time. So I'd like to maybe do some streams where I open up some other games and stuff like that and just talk about them and what I think is kind of interesting about them. I think that'd be really fun. Patrick Box says, thanks for going for so long. You've earned yourself a treat. Ah, thank you. Thank you, Box. Well, the Fanta is the only treat I need. Please sponsor me, Fanta. Funny thing is, I don't drink a lot of Fanta, but I will if they want me to. LC says, the most I interact with 40k these days is playing co-op Gladius Relics of War with my friends. That's awesome. That's cool. Gladius, that's the 4X game, right? I think I might have that. Blood Bowl is frustrating, says Giorgio. Yeah, Blood Bowl is frustrating, from losing your whole turn to stalling. Yeah, 100%. I think the only thing, my problem with Blood Bowl is that I always ended up just fighting. I just fought in the middle and was like, whatever, ball's the ball. I'm orcs. I'm gonna fight. Luda says, thank you so much for a great couple of hours. Go take a rest. Can't wait for whatever you do next. I'll be off shortly. Meal to prepare. Well, yep, certainly. I think I will soon. It's starting to get a little bit late. It's 5:30 now. I started this at 4. And I've just been talking nonstop. It's been a lot of fun, though. Updown says, the biggest reason that I'm cautious about Cursed City is how James there's a Freudian slip. James Workshop has dropped the Blackstone Fortress. Yeah, right. This is sort of the thing that I think Games Workshop kind of overlook. They just presume that the market will be there. They kind of I'm Games Workshop. I can't feel. But I totally agree. I would be far more cautious about playing Cursed City knowing that Blackstone Fortress disappeared. But on the other hand, I wonder, do they think, oh, well, people know that Blackstone Fortress disappeared. It means they'll buy the expansions for Cursed City as soon as they come out. Ha 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 ha. Is this a force for evil? Do they sort of intend on that? I mean, because they could do. That could definitely be part of their kind of calculations. I could 100% see that. Which is kind of really lame. And I hate being so cynical of Games Workshop. I wish I could be nice about them, but they don't give me any reason not to be cynical about them at all. They really don't. And they sometimes lean into it, and it's really sad. It's kind of frustrating because I'd love to just, enjoy it. I think people misunderstand that I really love this hobby. I love it so much. It's my favorite thing in the world. So it kind of gets... It's kind of lame that the biggest company inside this hobby just so happens to be really predatory. I wish that wasn't the case. And they didn't always used to be. They always were expensive and stuff, but they've really doubled down on their worst impulses, and it's just gotten worse. So it's just really sad. I hope they change. I really do hope they change. And I hope they take a lot of the criticism on board. And I think that, there are repercussions to how they've been acting in the market. And I think there has been some changes, but it's been really small and it's not been big enough. Updown says, and Enrique Tuana says, have you seen the amazing action figures based on Warhammer 40k? If they do classic Warhammer Fantasy, I will buy them all. I haven't, although, action figures aren't really my thing. Basically, I used to have loads and loads of the toys and dolls and stuff, and then my mom just threw them out one day, and it completely devastated me. And that might be why I have such a huge collection of miniatures now, and I cannot burn them all in protest. And ever since then, I haven't really collected action figures or anything like that. The reason why I really enjoy miniatures is because they are playable pieces. You can play with them. There's organized play that you do with them. But if there's Warhammer Fantasy action figures, I might probably be pretty interested in that. I'm not going to lie about that. I think I would be interested maybe in Warhammer Fantasy ones. Drew says, I just hate how 40k feels like the Imperium fighting themselves. Yes. It's not really the Imperium, right? It's Space Marines versus Space Marines. But yeah, there's a lot of Imperium factions, and I think that's kind of a problem for the game. There's more Imperium factions, right, than any other faction. It's kind of weird. Wargaming says, I wish I had a 3D printer because I have a lot of other files from Patreon. 3D printers are absolutely awesome. I think at some stage, lots more people will have them. I think that the biggest problem for them right now is not cost. I actually think that they're really affordable now. I think they're super affordable. I think the biggest problem with them is just the fumes, and they are toxic. You've got to be careful around them. I have mine positioned sort of in a very specific area, and you need like space for them. And in the UK and stuff, it's very hard to get that space. If you live in an apartment, it's basically impossible to put it somewhere safe. So I think if they're able to work on getting the fact that it's toxic done, like I think if they can create some filters and things like that, I think that would be really, really cool, and would 100% like increase adoption loads. But on the other hand, a lot more people have been buying 3D printers than I thought they would have like 3 years ago. So that's really cool. That's been very, very cool. Scarab Swarm, thank you so much for the donation. It says Alpha Strike is a less crunchy variant of BattleTech. Oh, if you're interested in the lore, check out Tex Talks BattleTech on YouTube. Funny and informative. I've heard really good things about Tex Talks. I haven't seen his content, but I've heard really good things about that. So thank you for the suggestion. I didn't know that there was a less crunchy variant of BattleTech. Alpha Strike. I'll have to write that down. I'll check that out. I will check that out, Scarab. Thank you so much for the donation. It's very generous. Thank you. Let's see here. The dog shop says the Elegoo filters are really good. I did not know they do filters. Okay, I'm going to have to look into this. So, I did not know. Johnny says, fumes, back in my day, we had lead minis. Yes. Oh, dear goodness. Yes, lead minis. I still get worried about working with resin, though. I'm, like, always a little bit like, ooh, this is kind of toxic in a very specific context. I sure hope I don't accidentally eat any resin. The dog shop says, Elegoo mini air purifier with activated carbon filter. Okay, that's really cool. I'm going to have to check into that. Part of my problem is sometimes I feel like I need like a science degree. Like I'll need to talk to Goobertown or something like that in order to actually understand whether or not something works or not. Updown says, look at all the content that was around for Advanced Hero Quest and look at what little there was for Blackstone Fortress and how short a life cycle it had. Yeah, it's crazy to me that was the case. That's crazy to me. And Ralph also says here, there are filters you can use. Elegoo has some active carbon filters you can put inside the printers that filter the fumes. I have my printer in an apartment and use them. No smell. Wow, okay. Now, smell isn't the only indicator that there's fumes, right? Sometimes it doesn't smell at all, so just be careful of that. But that's really cool. I'll have to look into that. I didn't know you could get those filters. Sebastian says, coming from 5th edition Warhammer Fantasy Battle, one of our starter armies is gone. The surviving one is pretty strong, though. Well, I'm trying to think of who you mean there. See, because whenever I think of the factions in Warhammer, like Fantasy, I guess, and Age of Sigmar, my brain still goes to Warhammer Fantasy Battle. So what? Is Tomb Kings aren't there anymore? Who else? Well, I mean, kind of like vampire counts are kind of there. Like, a lot of them sort of survived in very specific ways, but Tomb Kings, I think, are the only ones who didn't, right? I'm trying to think now. Oh, goodness. I mean, Cities of Sigmar ate a lot of them, but I still miss my proper Empire boys. Like, Cities of Sigmar was not a good replacement. Lack of gravitas. Oh, and it's $10 Australian. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's really kind of you. He says, I sometimes wonder if Games Workshop are hoping to sell themselves to Disney one day, and they are hoping no one looks too closely at all the IP they pulled from 2000 AD comics. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of inspiration there with the mega cities and stuff like that, and the Arbites and the Judge Dredd and things like that. Yeah, 100%. I don't know if they ever. I think as a company, they would take a buyout from Disney if it was offered, because you got to remember, the sort of, as a company, really, we say Games Workshop, but what we really mean is the machine Games Workshop, which is handled by certain operators, and the operators are the senior executives of Games Workshop. They are the people who handle the machine Games Workshop. So would they sell that machine if they could get lots of money for doing so? And I think they would. They would 100% sell that machine if they could get lots of money for it. If it was more than it was worth. Yes, 100%. And I think they feel like if they increase the value of the IP, which is like the shiniest cog in that little machine, the fuel, the engine that drives it all, they would 100% sell to Disney if they could. I don't know if that's like 100% their goal. I think that they're just trying to emulate Hasbro, because they've seen how much success Hasbro have had, and that's why they've brought on these Hasbro executives and things like that, because they sort of like what's going on there. So yeah, Bretonia, of course. Bretonia, rip Bretonia, says Jamie Hall. Of course, Bretonia are gone. Huh? They were never gone, really, because I still have them in my heart. Like, I don't live in a world where Bretonia don't exist anymore, okay? Bretonia is still alive. And here's the thing, right? People can... I don't know if this is true or not, okay? So this is like pure discourse speculation. You can tell me in chat whether or not I am totally incorrect here. But am I wrong? Or did they get rid of Bretonia because they could not copyright them properly? After Chapter House, right? Do you remember all that Chapter House stuff? And they found out that they couldn't copyright orcs or space marines or the shoulder pads of space marines, and so they freaked out. They started renaming everything. were they worried that Bretonnia, because they had like horses, for example, I mean, the majority of that army were knights. They were just medieval knights. And if you're making medieval knights for your game, you're competing with the Perry brothers, you're competing with all these different other historical companies, that they just get rid of Bretonnia because of that, because they couldn't afford to compete with them. They were going to sell these really expensive Bretonnian models, and they didn't want to compete with the Perry Bros. Is that the case? I mean, if you ever noticed that Age of Sigmar, there's like no horses in that game at all. It's like the one fantasy game I am aware of that does not have any horses in it at all. And I suspect that's because they don't want anyone proxying horses from other game systems. Honestly, I genuinely think that might be the case. But that could be just conspiracy on my side. Oh, Happy Metal Geek says, Discourse, just realized the squat looks like it's out of Overwatch. That's actually a really, it does look a lot like something out of Overwatch, doesn't it? It's very strange. It's just very out of step, I think, with the sort of design aesthetic of a lot of Warhammer 40k. If you look at it, it kind of looks like a Genestealer cultist. It's got that same sort of, the shoulder pads, and then the circular sort of bulby bit. Like, it's a similar suit. It's like a mining suit, you know? And I think that's the vibe they were going for. But the thing with the Genestealer cultists is that they have this strange carapace that has these kind of grooves and recesses, and it feels like almost like they're wearing corsets. And it's a very specific vibe. It looks very specific to them, and they're all wearing the sort of the mining goggles, and they're armed with this kind of weird weaponry. To be honest, if they're going for a mining aesthetic for the squats, I mean, they've already done that with the Genestealer cults, not that I think about it. It's kind of weird. Like, what are they going to do with the squats? We got mining lasers on the Genestealer cultists, so why do the squats exist? Like, people are like, oh my god, the squat has a pickaxe. You can see the outline of one of them. He has a pickaxe. And it's like, yeah, power picks. So the Genestealer cults have that already because they're miners. Like, that's how they're themed. They're themed as a mining colony almost. So yeah, it's kind of weird. I don't know. I'm not excited about the aesthetic of the squats. I'm sorry. I know the people are though. I mean, I'm not yucking. Nobody's yum. But yeah, that's just my vibe on it. That's just my vibe, and we'll see what more comes out. I mean, I think that if they had like 50 style robots, that would be kind of cool. I think robots could maybe rescue that faction if they had some men of iron. That'd be pretty cool. I gotta admit, if they had that would be a pretty nice aesthetic direction for them to go in. Oh God, my voice, it's completely going. Jose Namey Kohler says, I dream of a combination of 8th edition and 5th edition Empire. Give me Hellfire rockets and Demogryphs, but also Halflings, Ogres, and Kislev stuff. Yes, I would totally take that, 100%. I would 100% take that. That's like my dream as well. You're in here. Justice for Bretonnia, says Baldasaurus. Yes, indeed, quite so. Fraser Bloodaxe says, I agree with that. I'm also a thinker. Waffleman says, but it's Imperial miners. Yeah, okay. Yeah, right. My mistake. Sorry. They're good guy miners. I think the Genestealer cults are good guys. They're just trying to change. They're trying to change their context. And you know what? I would take the chance that the Hive Fleet will not arrive over having to continue to live in the Imperial system. I'll take the chance that the Hive Fleet just doesn't show up, that it gets intercepted before it arrives, and I just get to live in the Genestealer cult society than living in the Imperial society for definite. I would take that. So how about that as a hot take? Andrew Marrington says, you can still buy the original Bretonnia models as medieval French minis from Wargames Foundry, so yeah, not exactly protectable IP, 100%. Happy Metal Geek says, I got my fix of Warhammer Fantasy Battles from Kings of War. I actually bought the Kings of War rulebook not too long ago. I bought the Kings of War rulebook not too long ago. It looks kind of fun. Look, I'm really excited about the halfling. I don't know, everybody else isn't excited about the halfling. Everyone's like, oh, the squats. I'm like, what about those halflings though, huh? You've seen those halflings? They look like they're straight from the Shire. What's going on? Come on, they look great. But yeah, like I get the sort of like my problem with Kings of War is that there is no human faction, or at least this was my problem with them. There was no human faction. They all looked like they were out of like Might and Magic or something, and I'm not like a huge fan of that really high fantasy aesthetic. So that was kind of a problem for me, but then the halflings came out and it completely remedied that problem, so I just bought in. I haven't played a game of Kings of War though. I've been kind of put off by the fact that it is you go, I go. That, and I've got like 40 different games on projects and stuff like that at the minute. James Sutter says the squad model looks like it is wearing Necromunda and Force armor. Sort of. Freya Bloodaxe says Genestealer cults are good guys. Heresy, 100%. Look, okay, you want to know my real hot take? My hot take is that the protagonists of Warhammer 40k, the good guys, are the Dark Eldar. They are the most moral, ethical faction in the game. The Dark Eldar, the Drukhari. And I have a really long, complicated reason for this, and I think I can argue it pretty comprehensively. But you'll have to wait. I'm gonna do it in a video at some stage. I think I'm gonna do it in a video at some stage. I really firmly believe this. Half and half. I don't think there's any good guys in Warhammer, but I think if there is a good guy protagonist who are moral agents for righteousness, it is the Dark Eldar, the Drukhari. I think that might be a little bit controversial. Dr. V with a $10 donation. Thank you so much, Dr. V, thank you so much. $10. That is really lovely. Thank you. Warhammer Armies Project is best Warhammer Fantasy /AOS available today, MIO. Take care and enjoy your work. Well, thank you so much. I have heard about the Warhammer Armies Project. I have not checked it out, though, so I will have to. I've got like a huge Empire army that I would be able to deploy for that, so that would be kind of cool. I've got a lot of like fantasy codexes and stuff like that, so that's really neat. Thank you. I will definitely have to check that out. Max Sentence says, I never play fantasy. I'm curious as to why people always go on about Bretonians. They seem like the blandest, most boring faction ever. They're sort of, they have that classic knight experience, aesthetic, you know? So the way I think about it is, people really love Space Marines, right? And they really love the kind of heavily armored dude who can take all the damage, dish it back out, and is super elite and like is really cool. That's basically a medieval knight, right? That's basically a medieval knight. For Warhammer Fantasy, their version of Space Marines were basically knights, the Knights of Bretonia. So that's why people really love them. They also they're very over the top in a lot of ways. They're kind of memey in a little bit just because of how badly they treat the peasantry. It's kind of a fun faction to roleplay, which is something I don't think that enough attention is paid to. I think there's factions in the game that are really fun to roleplay, and I think that they get a lot more focus as a result. If you think about the orcs, right? The orcs basically exist because it's really fun to do the orc voice. It's really fun to do the orc voice. So I think that they get a lot more attention than they otherwise should do. And I think the same is for Bretonia. It's really fun to kind of roleplay as like this noble lord, this kind of pushy noble lord. But here's another thing. The models look really cool. I really like the men of arms. I like the peasant units in that. I think the men of arms look really cool. It's a very specific vibe. You also got a lot of historical players who were really into Bretonia as well. It was like their kind of gateway into Warhammer Fantasy was to play with the knights and stuff. So I think people just really like them. They took a shine to them. And you saw it with the squats, right? The moment you cannot play something, everybody comes out of the woodwork to say they loved it. Because people miss what they can't have. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. And so if you tell people you can't play Bretonia anymore, people are going to say, I want to play Bretonia. So, you know, I think that's the case. But I've always really enjoyed them. I've always really liked Bretonia. Woo! Okay. Weird says, I'm waiting for Imperial Guard's return. It is so weird to me that the Imperial Guard are being treated like this kind of Z-lister faction. It's so weird to me. As someone who started in 4th, like, to me, Imperial Guard were like one of the biggest factions in the game. The quads and ash wastes. Oh no, I've missed. No. I think the quads look good. I didn't get to see the comments, sorry. But I think the quads look fine in Ash Waste. Ash Waste, so I think this was a little bit controversial. My take on Ash Waste as well. I think the problem is, right, people mistake the fact that the models look good in these games. Like, I think the models for Ash Waste look good as well. I think they look fine. I didn't have really any kind of critical opinion of the models in Ash Waste. I think the nomads look pretty cool. And I think that a lot of people sort of take me as saying that I'm not looking forward to Ash Waste as some sort of condemnation of the models. I'm not condemning the models. I think the models look kind of cool. I'm a little bit worried about assembly for them, I'm not going to lie. But I think the models themselves look cool. My problem with Ash Waste is that it just wasn't what I was expecting. And I think I was wrong to expect what I expected. I think that I expected something a little bit different. I expected it to be a very like Mad Max sort of situation where there would be like these vehicles clashing into one another, like Gaslands or something, you know, where you have cars crashing into one another and driving around this desert waste, going all over the place, trying to zip over and grab certain areas on the map. And I've seen Necromunda games that have just had like custom rules brought in for vehicles, and they looked very much like that. But the point is that they were very vehicle heavy. The game was focused on vehicle gameplay. Ash Wastes doesn't look like that. To me, Ash Waste, so far from everything we've seen, looks like it's going to be very infantry based. And to that I say, what's the point in this game? Like, we already have that. It's called Necromunda. You could very easily just introduce some like robots or whatever to Necromunda, give them heavy turrets, and then you would have the same thing as the vehicles serve, the same exact gameplay rule that are served by the vehicles. Like, what is the point in this? I'm playing on a 3x3. Why do I need vehicles whenever the normal infantry guy in Necromunda can move pretty fast? Like, if I'm playing Escher, like, I don't need a car. Like, I can run pretty fast. So what's the difference between this game? What's the difference between Ashways and Necromunda? Oh, well, there's more guns, and there's maybe some weather effects. Okay, we already had that in Necromunda. It was called Hivequake, and it was awful. What else is there going to be that's unique about this game? Oh, well, there's less cover. That was not the problem with Necromunda. The problem with Necromunda was not that there was not enough cover, or that there was too much cover, I should say. That was not the problem with Necromunda. So, you know, I want to like Ash Waste as someone who really enjoyed Necromunda, but I just, oh man, I just see all the books coming on the horizon like a flood. I see them coming. Oh, don't you want to see the vehicles that are specific for Escher? Well, sure, I'd like to see that. Well, buy the book. There's a book here with all the different vehicles. And more than likely, Escher are going to get some weird creatures. They're not even going to get cars, probably, goddammit. Escher are always being given that sort of stuff. It really annoys me. I just want to play the girl gang, okay? Come on. Zimsam says, Discourse, check out Conquest, Last Argument of Kings. It's a I go, you go, when you did a time with 3 phases. Is that the one where you start off the board and like the first thing that happens is that you come onto the board? That's kind of cool. I find that kind of cool. Andrew Weber says, Necrons are the good guys. Maybe. Maybe. Right, says, time to unsub, unfollow, and unwatched. Yes. Let's see here. I'm just gonna scroll down a little bit. Kelly says their Kingdom of Men are basically normal humans in Kings of War. They just don't make models, or because there's a load of historical minis out there already. Okay, I did not know that. That's really interesting, actually. So I have the rulebook, and I know that all the armies are listed in the rulebook. I haven't had a chance to go through there yet, so maybe I'll check into that. Tyranid are the heroes we need. See, that's the answer I always hear when people are told, like, well, who are the top 3 good guy factions in Warhammer? And people always default to the Tyranids because they're just giving in to their normal biological impulses. All they want to do is eat. But you can't really ascribe a moral agency to that, right? Like, you can't say that they're the good guys because of that reason. And then people default to, well, it's not that they're the good guys, it's just that they're not the bad guys because they're just doing their biological impulse. But then, if that's the case, I just put them on the same tier as orcs, right? Because all orcs, their biological urge is to fight. So how are Tyranids more morally righteous than orcs? They're both the same, you know? And then by that stage, you start getting into these kind of weird thinkings like, okay, well, if we're going to be starting to devolve everything down into their biological urges, like there's a lot of stuff that is justifiable. Like this isn't a good place to go. The reason why the Dark Eldar are the most righteous people is because of the choices they have made. The Dark Eldar have made some good choices, in my opinion, and they are doing some things that have a moral quality to them, and they are specifically doing them because of that moral quality. And I will argue this. I will argue this 100%. Here's the thing. I'm currently thinking of doing like a lore channel as a side thing. So the way I've been doing lore videos on this channel, I'm thinking about just kind of making it so that this channel is reserved only for sort of the commentary pieces on like the miniature stuff, and then just having like a little side channel where I would just throw up lore videos every so often. So I'm thinking about doing that because less people watch the lore videos. Less people are just interested in the lore videos. So what happens is they don't click onto the lore videos, and then my miniature videos don't get shown to them. So that's kind of problematic. I've kind of got this like 2 different kind of viewer base, and I don't like that. So I think I might separate that too out. So that means that people who are interested in lore can check out the lore channel and subscribe to that, and people who are interested in the miniatures can check out the miniature stuff, and if you're interested in both, subscribe to both. And this, actually, I should bring this up. So I'm probably going to be streaming on a different channel, something called Discourse Live. I'm probably going to be streaming on Discourse Live instead of this channel, because what happens is that you stream on here, and because it's a stream, only certain people are going to want to watch it. Not everybody's going to want to watch a live stream. So what I'm thinking about doing is I will instead create an actual channel called Discourse Live, where the live... what would you call these? Streams? Yes, streams. Live streams will be up on, but I'm not 100% certain yet. I will probably announce that in a video at some stage. Like, not a dedicated video, but I'll mention it in, like, one of my next videos if I am doing that. So stay tuned to that, or, like, follow me on Twitter or something like that. I've got like, a Twitter account. Maybe a mod can throw that up in the chat. So, yeah, check that out. Let's see. Dan Brooks says GW had to change the name of the Halflings because the Token family were challenging the name of hobbits being used. Yaha! Yes, the Lord of the Rings. Unfortunately, the floodgates are open now. Everybody is being able to make. Ever since Christopher Tolkien was passed, unfortunately, it seems like that IP is just open season now. I'm not looking forward to this Amazon thing, this new Amazon show. I don't know if the writers at Amazon really will be able to do justice to Lord of the Rings, but I mean, I'm not gonna lie here, guys. I haven't read the books Lord of the Rings. This is something that Lackey at Sorposorp always gets on at me, that I have not read. I have not read the Lord of the Rings. This is like the biggest crime I could have committed to him. I've watched the movies. I love the movies. The movies are awesome. Rothrick says, Lord videos need more skits. Yes, that's fair. That is totally fair. I have a Dark Eldar outfit. Like, I've got that. So I'll probably do if I do this video, I'll probably do it entirely dressed as the Dark Eldar, more than likely. So, yeah. I want to try and get more skits in. The skits are actually really tough. So the skits seem so throwaway, I think, to a lot of people, but they're actually really tough. They take, like, the most work because... So one of the things I was discovering was that Games Workshop, they keep doing the same stuff like over and over again. It's really hard to lampoon Games Workshop. They're kind of beyond parody in a lot of ways. You know, you make fun of them for sort of making an exclusive box, but then like next month they come up with another exclusive box. Like you got to think of a new joke for that. It's really tough. So there's only so many skits that I kept on finding myself coming up with the same ideas over and over. And for a while I was kind of beholden to the idea that I would do a skit every single video. And that was really taking a lot of time. I was kind of burning out on that, actually, because it would take an entire day to come up with the idea of a skit and then record it. And then editing would take forever. And this is just the skit. So I was adding like an extra like day or two onto the videos just for this like 30-second, minute-long kind of addition to the video. And it just wasn't worth it. I know that people really enjoyed them, and I really enjoyed making them, but it just wasn't worth it. So I do it every so often now. I'm trying to do it whenever I have like a really good idea. Like the Beastman video was really fun. To do the Beastman one was really good, but that was the last one I've done in a while, so I need to kind of sit down and start doing some more. Sebastian says, would you be interested in STLs that are great Dark Eldar proxies like being GW knockoffs with the unique sculpts? Sure, Sebastian, I'm always up for that. Okay, so let's see. We're on 10 minutes to 7. I think that's probably gonna have to be me, guys. Like I can feel I can't talk anymore. Like you're probably able to hear it. Like I cannot talk. Kieran Mathers says beyond parody like the GW universe then. Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. Oh, thank you, Lyman Dink. Thank you for linking that. That's lovely. Thank you so much. And Evolution Give says they are so entertaining. The skits are fantastic. Yes, I know. I love them as well. I need to try and do them. I've started kind of importing some of them on the TikTok, so I could get some extra stuff. I've actually been doing some original content on TikTok. So if you have TikTok, check me out there. You'll be able to find me if you type in like Discourse Miniatures or Discourse Minis. I think I might be there. Dan Brooks says, I do not do the Twitter at all, but the concept of a Sunday evening live stream is really cool. I want to do more of these, so I'm probably going to try and do one of these at least a week. I think that this is really fun. I've had a really fun time. Maybe not as long next time because my throat is kind of going out, but I think that I'd love to do this. I'd love to show off some games as well. I think this is a really good place to like talk about games and stuff and just check in with everybody and see what's going on. So thank you so much, guys. That's going to be me for tonight. I'm so sorry if I did not get to your questions or I didn't see maybe like a donation or anything like that. I'm so sorry. I'm still trying to get used to all this stuff and chat was going crazy. So thanks so much. I do have a Patreon, of course, and I do Patreon exclusive live streams, which is a lot smaller. It's a lot more sort of cozy, I guess. A lot more sort of, it's definitely more of a back and forth. So check that out if you are interested in that. I'm trying to do those once a week as well. So check that out. And thanks everybody. Basically, it's been really, really cool. This is like a real pick me up, I'll tell you, because I've been getting some harsh messages lately. So this is a lot of fun to do. Thank you so much, guys, and I will catch you next time. Bye bye. Games Workshop, Delinda Est.